Guys, thank you. My name is Jordan North from BBC Radio 1. You might have heard me, might not have done. I do Sunday mornings on Radio 1, and I also cover for some of the presenters you've probably heard of, like Greg James, Cloramfo, Matt Edmondson, to name drop just a few. Scott Mills, covered for him a few times as well. The reason why I'm here today is because, obviously, I'm a presenter for BBC Radio 1, but I'm also kind of from Preston. I've lived here since I was 10 years old. I used to go to Preston's College, which I believe we've got a few guys in from Preston's College today. Just a couple, alright, fair enough. You told me there were like 40 of you here. I first started my radio career in Preston as well. I used to work at a community station called Preston FM, which was like a voluntary station, and it had the slogan at the time, "Stay pressed on." So yeah, which was really cheesy. And also I used to work for Rock FM, which is just down the road from here. And my brother, like some of you guys, is a student at UCLan. I take it most of you guys are students here? Yeah, okay. You might have to be a bit louder. Are most of you guys students here? Yeah. There we go, thank you. So today is all for your benefit. We're speaking to loads of different guests and talking about how to get into the creative and media industries. And we're here to inspire and give you guys a bit of an insight into what it's like to work in the creative and media industry. Hopefully you'll go away today and you'll be like, I want to do that. I'm from Preston, I can do that, why not? Back to the academy. This morning, my friend, colleague and birthday girl, Radio 1's Abbie McCarthy, will be chatting to the spoken word powerhouse, Suli Breaks. She'll also be joined by one of the most eclectic presenters on TV, Radzi Chinyanganya, who'll talk about the changing role of talent and why adaptability is important in this industry. And we'll be joined by the cast and crew of Hollyoaks as well. And just to let you know that Radio 1's brand new breakfast show host, the very handsome and talented Greg James, will be on this stage as well. And are we Greg James fans? Oh yeah, that's the correct answer. I would have hated it if you said no. Bring back Grimmy. So yeah, Greg's going to be on there. All these guys will be like doing a question and answer session with you, and we kind of want you guys to ask some questions. Sorry. So if you've got any questions at the end, don't be shy. Put your hand up, because you guys kind of make it. Some of the questions we find are better when they come from you guys, not us boring presenters. And if you're shy, don't worry. I'll be out there in the audience with you, and I'll help you if you get a bit worried or anything like that. There's one more thing, hang on. There's a brochure listing all the panels and guests, and on the back is a QR code that takes you to a survey. We really want to hear from you and what you think about Radio 1's Academy today. So we can ask, please, can you fill in that form? It won't take you long, it'll take you 2 minutes. You can scan the QR code or you can click the link. If you complete the survey as well, we'll automatically put you into competition, and you could win yourself £100 worth of Amazon vouchers, and we'll be giving 5 lots of them away. So if you fill out that survey, you could win yourself, bless you, £100 of Amazon vouchers. I hope that's not gone on someone's neck. You'll see as well that we've also got a Twitter and Instagram wall that we want to see filled with all your tweets and pictures. You can tweet questions at any time, and you can post your Instagram pics, all using the hashtag Radio 1 Academy. That's hashtag Radio 1 Academy, all lowercase. You, sir, what's the hashtag? Yes, sir, you're an absolute gentleman. Hashtag Radio 1 Academy. So we've got a fun-filled day for you. It's going to be a really good, insightful day, I can promise you that. I would have loved something like this when I was in your guys' position at uni or college. And yeah, we've got a free lunch as well, so what more can you ask for? Before, I said that we had a spoken word powerhouse, and now he's going to show you why. This guy is so talented. Please give it up, UCLan. Give a big, warm, loud Preston welcome to Suli Breaks.
Hey, how you guys doing? You sound amazing. You sound like you're so excited, and you look really excited. Yeah, is that the level of excitement Preston kind of displays? This is my first time here, by the way. You know, I really appreciate you guys accommodating me. Where's the best place to eat and that?
3 Monkeys.
Domino's. Domino's? I've got Nando's in London though. That's kind of what's unique to like Preston. All you lot from Preston, right? No? Oh, where's the different places you lot from? Oh, Manchester. Okay, I know. I'm familiar with Manchester. So Bury. Where's Bury? Pardon? Near where? Okay, yeah. Let's leave it at that. Cool, but I'm joking, my bro. No, but yeah. Hopefully, I get to try something which is quite nice, other than Domino's and Nando's. But how you guys doing, man? It's an early morning, no? It's not early. You woke up at 6 o'clock. You're eager, boy. This brother's eager. I like him. He got up at 6 o'clock. He came, sat in the front row. He's got his phone ready. He's got his notepad and all of that. What's your name, bro? Issa. Nice to meet you, Issa, man. Thank you very much. I'm glad that Issa has enough energy for all of you guys, man. So yeah, I'm a spoken word poet. You guys familiar with spoken word poetry? Really? Yeah? What's the last one you watched? Or the last one you heard? Me? Where did you see me? I don't know you, bro. Where you see me? GCSE? Oh, really? I'm not allowed to perform that one today. So I don't want you lot to leave school. You know? I don't want you all to come out and leave. Yeah, oh, that's cool then. Yeah, so I write poetry and perform spoken word. And I just want to perform some quick pieces for you guys today. I just want to give a bit of context before I go into this first piece. Is anyone familiar with a company called Kodak? Kodak, like proper familiar. Whoever had a Kodak, he said he doesn't know. Can anyone explain to him what Kodak is? So basically, Kodak is a camera. Everyone that said they know, shame on you, because no one can explain it. Basically, Kodak is a camera company. So before we had iPhones and Samsung and all that kind of stuff, we used to have these devices called cameras, yeah? And we click, yeah, and then and the film would come out, and then, no, we wouldn't just have it and upload it to Instagram. We used to have to go to, like, get it developed. So Kodak was one of the biggest companies when it came to developing cameras. This was a massive, massive company. But what happened to Kodak was, as time went on and as we evolved and technology developed, eventually their business became obsolete, because obviously, what came round? What? Yeah, to make sure the iPhone didn't come around, the digital camera came around. So what happened was the digital camera came around, the people in Kodak actually helped develop digital camera. Is anyone familiar with a company called HMV? So what they sell, you know what HMV used to sell, right? CDs everywhere. Same thing happened to HMV. I'm from Wood Green, a place in London, and the one we had shut down, and unfortunately a lot of them shut down all over the city because the same phenom, the same kind of thing happened. Technology happens, we have to adapt, and the industry and the world changes. That's just a fact of life. So the premises behind this piece was called Create the Future, and I basically wanted to elaborate on the fact that nothing is certain. You know, don't be too focused on what you see around you. Always think about, have you ever watched something on TV and be like, oh, this would be really cool if I could invent that? That's how I was as a kid, you know what I mean? And that was inspiration behind this piece. It was basically like, you know what? Even though this is there now and this is supposed to be what's relevant, that always changes. And I hope there's some inspiration in this for you. Create the future. In 1826, Dr. Lee D. Forrest had the following to say about the future of television. He said, although theoretically it's a possibility, commercially and financially it's impossible, and something we shouldn't waste time dreaming about. In 1977, Ken Olsen, founder of DEC, said, there's no reason why anybody would ever want a computer in their house. In 1876, Western Union rejected the telephone, saying the idea is idiotic and we wouldn't recommend its purchase. What did Instagram see that Kodak didn't? Because Kodak at its peak had about 140,000 employees, and Instagram, with only 14, recently sold for about $1 billion. You know what's funny? The scientists at Kodak actually helped develop the digital camera that would eventually take them out of business. So why, when that was developing in potential, was the company stuck developing pictures? Something that you created ends up becoming one of your biggest opponents. Looking back through the timeline, that must have been one hell of a Kodak moment. HMV, one of the world leaders in its field at its peak, recently faced bankruptcy. And what do you expect? I mean, one phone call to my friend Jesse, in under 6 hours, I could have probably had the whole of HMV on a USB. Were they realistically still trying to sell CDs? You see what I'm getting at? Because sometimes we get stuck in our ways, reluctant to change, function the same, forgetting that all skyscrapers were once just slabs of stone. Google was once just a scrap of codes. If you think about it from a perspective that's logical, the only true path to your dreams is to perceive what others deemed impossible. Because I can bet you right now it's not too far-fetched that there's a kid in an apartment creating some kind of app that will disrupt this industry and put that job in the past tense simply because he's still crazy enough to believe in the scenes that he sees in Star Trek. Because it's only crazy people that embrace what others tend to fear. I bet Kodak wished it had someone standing at the end of the line with a sign saying, the end is near. Because everything that we saw in Star Wars and labeled insanity is now a potential reality. Well, except for the lightsaber. But I do have this one idea of a broom handle and a laser. If anyone's an investor, we'll discuss that later. But all I'm saying is that everything that we saw and labeled insanity is now a potential reality. And the world changes so fast that we don't even realize this happening. Most people don't even realize this happening. Listen to this. A man messaged me saying why he hates the internet. But he'd seen my video on YouTube and he wanted to discuss it further on Skype. He said I could check his LinkedIn profile to see that he was justified. And if I had more time, I could follow him on Twitter. If you don't change, you don't grow. If you don't grow, you aren't living. So this is my message to you all. It's only contents, a single quote. Appreciate the past, utilize the present, but don't be afraid to create the future. Thank you very much. Have any of you guys ever been to India? Oh, wow. What part did you go to? Pardon? Oh, can you shout that a bit louder? I can't pronounce it. Sorry, I can't even. Amritsar. Oh, cool. Have you ever heard of a guy called Dashraf Manjehi? You've never heard of it. A lot of people have never heard of this guy, and he's kind of... so basically, Dashraf Manjehi, he was a guy born in 1929. And what he was is he was a laborer. So, I mean, he used to work like manual work and stuff like that. And his wife got sick. And when his wife got sick, what happened was that the nearest hospital was 55 kilometers away. So it's an extremely what's the word? It's an extremely tiresome journey. So it wasn't possible, and eventually his wife died. Now that's the tragic part of the story. Now what's empowering about the story is, you know what this guy did from that point on? There was a massive mountain that separated his village from the hospital. So he got a hammer and chisel. This is a true story. And for 22 years, he burrowed through the mountain. After 22 years, he'd reduced the distance from the hospital from 55 kilometers to 5 kilometers. And he became a national hero. No, this is and you can Google this. And this is the inspiration behind the piece I wrote. Because sometimes I think we doubt our capabilities. And sometimes we look at the next person and think, raw, just because they did that, I don't think I can do that. And there's all these thoughts that go on in our head. But I've realized that with a lot of patience, perseverance, and endurance, almost anything is possible. I want to share this piece. It's just a short piece, so you guys don't have to get too tired of me, because I'm going to be talking again in a minute when I get interviewed in it. But it's called Two Types of People in This World. And it goes like this. There are two types of people in this world. Those who inspire and those who are inspired. Those who constantly long for and those who acquire. No idea is original. Yeah, there's truth in this. But the person who has the strength to pursue his idea often wins. Because some people have dreams and chase them, while others sleep, waiting to be awakened. Unaware that we can make a difference in our existence through hard work, resilience, and persistence. Because a man that wishes to move mountains must first start by shoveling pebbles from his base and realize that no matter how long it takes, a man can move mountains. And most of you think this is just a saying, and majority won't believe me, but when you get some time on your PC, Google Dashraf Manjihi. Because success is a ladder. Only few of us have the strength to find it. Even less of us have the strength to climb it. Afraid of the prospect of spending your whole life climbing. But don't let your success define you. Let your success be defining. Have you ever seen that picture on Facebook of the guy that's mining? You know, the one that gives up when he's this close to the diamond. Can you see people that change the world do not let the world change them? Because some of us are meant to be amazed and others are meant to be amazing. Thank you very much. Cool.
That was amazing. Please give it up one more time for Suli Breaks.
Oh, thank you.
Smashed it. I'm gonna go in the pink throne over here.
Shall I sit here then,
yeah, you go there. That's cool.
Alright, cool. I'm cool here. That's cool.
Thank you so much for opening things up for us.
No
Wasn't
problem
that
at all.
amazing? So good, right? Okay, let's talk a little bit more about your work. So a lot of it's kind of about our generation, isn't it?
Yeah,
Do you think that we're maybe a little bit misunderstood sometimes?
Yeah, I definitely think so. You know, like with social media and all the things that we kind of utilize day to day, people kind of misinterpret as like we're wasting time or we don't know what we're doing. I mean, like if you look at like massive YouTubers, you know, you see like people like Logan Paul and KSI, and people be like, these guys are just idiots. But if you look behind, I'm not sure if there's any Logan Paul or KSI fans in the building. No fans? Do you know who Logan Paul and KSI are? Do you have YouTube in Preston, yeah? Alright, cool. Just double checking, yeah. Anyway, yeah, a lot of people may see them and think they're idiots, but I mean, these guys are very entrepreneurial and they've built big businesses behind what people would have perceived as like wasting time playing video games online or watching or, you know, or pranks. I'm not a massive fan of either, but I respect the business behind it and the kind of like intuitiveness behind it.
And a lot of your work as well is about education. Is that something you feel passionate about or something that you maybe don't always quite understand?
Yeah, totally. I feel like I have a long-standing relationship with education. I was in school for like 12 years. I mean, I did the whole primary school, secondary school, college, university. So that compromised a lot of my life. So when I came out, I feel like there was a lot of misconceptions that I had about education and what I thought it would do for me. And then I realized how to actually really educate myself, and then I realized the real value of education. Do you get what I'm saying? So yeah, I think it's important. I like education and I like sharing my views on education.
And how did you get into what you're doing? How did you get into spoken word?
Ah, that's a long story, but just the brief and short of it. So I was in university. I had the opportunity to perform on a stage and it went really well, and then I got an invite to perform somewhere else. I was performing at little universities around the country, and then when I graduated I studied law. It was kind of like, do I want to pursue law full-time or do I want to go into this spoken word? And naively I said I wanted to go into the spoken word because I enjoyed it. I didn't know that at the time it wasn't going to pay any bills, you know what I mean? So I went into like a long process of like working. I've worked lots of jobs. I was in construction, you know, I was in door-to-door, I was a cleaner, you know, I worked for lots of opportunities. Then I discovered YouTube as a platform and I really started to utilize it. And then, you know, I had a few viral videos and people started paying attention, and then it became a career from the back of that.
Have you got any like heroes in spoken word, or maybe people that have like inspired you along the way?
I think I like to draw my inspiration. I definitely have people in spoken word that I like, but maybe if I mentioned them, you wouldn't know. Like if I said poetry, probably just Shakespeare that most people know. But I feel like I take influences from a lot of people from respective fields. So if I when it comes to like innovation, I look at someone like Steve Jobs. When it comes to like sports, I like Michael Jordan, and like, you know, people I think who've always excelled in their field. I'm a big fan of people because it's hard to be successful in any industry.
Any musicians that you're really loving?
Oh, right now or just in general?
In general, let's go.
I mean, there's too many, man. Like, there's too many. Like, I talk about, like, I'm a big Jay-Z fan. I'm a hip-hop fan, innit? But I like Adele as well. Obviously, everyone likes Adele. I'm, you know, Drake, Kendrick Lamar, you know, like, and obviously London, you know, we got Stormzy, we got gigs, you know what I mean? So I could go on all day, like, just talking about musicians music's a big part of, like, my creative process.
Yeah, it feels like there's quite a lot of crossover now between music and spoken word. People like Loyal Kana are using it in their music. Stormzy had quite a lot of like sort of spoken word in his new album. Are you pleased to see that?
100%, you know what I mean? Because when I was young, I used to go to my boys and be like, oh, I'm doing poetry. And they'll be like, why are you doing that for? You know what I mean? Or they'll be like, raw, like, that's a bit moist, you know? So it's kind of like, it's good that it's evolved to a point where I can actually do it and people will be like, oh, that's cool, you know what I mean? Or we like what you're doing, or bro, can you come and put an interlude on my thing, you know? So I like that. I like that development.
So as the guy, as the expert, what makes a successful spoken word piece?
What makes a successful spoken word piece? I think...
Is that you or is that the chair?
Oh, shit. Sorry. She tried to say that I farted. That's why you probably... no, it's the chair. This is a high quality leather.
Just wanted to clear that
It's
up.
high quality leather. I wasn't... You confused me for a second. I was thinking maybe that... that was me earlier, but not right now. What makes I think it's the same thing that makes anything successful in art. It's the whole idea of like it being authentic. You know what I mean? It's not about how well you can rhyme or how smart you can be. It's how well you can make something that connects with people. You know, it's like when Steve Jobs created the iPhone or iPod. He was like, the people need this. Is it going to connect with them? And I think that's the fundamental thing behind any art. Adele makes music for people who feel heartbroken, and it connects because obviously she has an amazing voice. But at the same time, it's like, it connects with me, you know. It's not, so I think that's what's important. If you make a piece and it resonates with someone, you've achieved success.
All right, we're going to throw it out to you, lovely lot. Anyone got a question? If so, put your arm in the air and we'll get a mic to you.
Anyone question? All right, cool.
There we go, straight in the middle there. Let's play Pass the Mic.
Let's get that mic going. Just throw it over, like...
Hi.
Yo.
So I do English language and linguistics as my degree, and I'm quite keen on poetry. I did a foundation year in English literature, so I did a lot of poetry. Are there any books that you recommend for spoken word advice, or do you just recommend YouTube and watching people, or...?
So you're studying it like in a literary capacity, like in text?
Yeah, I do electives in poetry as well.
Oh, okay, cool. I mean, there's channels on. If it was books, there's a poet called Iṛsᴛ쏘ഀ
Warsan,
yeah, she's dope. Like, I mean, I don't read a lot of poetry books,
okay,
but I read her book and I really, really liked it.
Okay.
When it comes to performance poetry, there's a lot online. I watch a lot of people online and I just stare at them. But I've never actually come across a specific book that teaches you how to actually like write
I haven't
poetry.
seen any either.
Yeah, I haven't come across one. Maybe that's an idea for you when you graduate. You know,
maybe.
Yeah,
it just comes from the heart. It just comes from the heart.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Exactly. It's you know what I mean. It's intuitive. But yeah, I'd recommend a lot of videos online. Now there's so many. When I started, I was like searching to try and find, but there's so many online. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That's great. Thank you so much.
No problem whatsoever, man. Good luck with your degree.
Anybody else? I think I saw one towards the back.
There's one at the end. Far.
Oh, sorry, and the front. We'll get to you in a bit, I promise.
Yeah, you're making her do exercise. She's just going back and forth.
Run.
Hiya.
Hey.
Hello.
So, when you got set out to write a poem, do you search for a subject to talk about, or do you take inspiration from something that's occurred to you, and then when you're writing it, does it sort of flow naturally, or do you have to work on it quite a lot?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. I think the way I see poetry, like, I never premeditate a subject. It's kind of like, I feel like the more you write, the more kind of like a photographer, we could look at the same kind of setting, and a photographer would see a great photo and I'd just see like a picture on the wall. So I think the more you write, the more you're able to pick up like subject matters in conversation, or within like you'll be able to tap into your feelings. So we could be talking about something and someone would say something, and for me that'd be like, oh, that would be a great thing to write a piece about, you know. Or it may be something that's just stirring inside me and I keep on having a conversation about it, and I'm like, you know what, I want to write that down as poetry. I never really sit down and be like, what subject am I going to write about today? Because I think that occasionally is at the point where you're not inspired. And I think when it comes to, sometimes it comes straight away. Sometimes the poem flows through you, and sometimes you work on it for days, weeks, months. And for me personally, the best pieces are the ones I've worked on over and over again. So I write it once, I like how it sounds, then I perform it, then I'm like, let me change this a bit, and then I change it again, and then I change it until it feels organic and it feels right. So I will definitely advocate, or even if a piece comes out first draft, to keep on going back to it, because it often gets a lot better when you figure out how to articulate yourself more eloquently.
Should we go to the question at the front as well?
Oh, this is my guy still, man.
Out of your original spoken words, like the American Dream and the one to the parents and the exam ones, do you look back at them now as you progressed, and do you look at do you feel proud of them still, or do you feel like anyone who's progressed, do you look back and think like, oh, they're not so good anymore, or do you think like, do you still feel proud of them?
Oh, that's a good question. He was just basically asking, do I look back at some of my old viral pieces and look at them and be like, oh, that was really crap or not? No, to be honest, there's some of them that, like you mentioned American Dream. I hate that video. That's your favourite one? Okay, I'm going to ruin your viewing pleasure, innit? But when you watch it, you'll see that my barber messed up my hairline, so my hair's like that in the video. So I can't watch the video back. It's so depressing to me. Yeah, exactly. The suit was nice, you know. I rented that one for the day. So as content-wise, everyone always comes up to me and says that's the one that really resonates with me. But personally, it's so hard for me to watch it over and over again. It's so difficult. But I like the message behind that piece, and I will not let an exam result decide my fate. That's one of my popular pieces. I still like that piece. I still look at it. Even to this day, that's 4 years ago, I still perform it and change it up. I'm still writing different parts to it. So yeah, definitely there's a love and hate relationship with some of them, just because of context, not really content.
Okay, anybody else? I think we've got time for one or two more.
Hiya.
Hey, yo.
You mentioned before about when you would mention it to your mates and they would kind of not put you down, but maybe think it was a bit different.
What did you say? Moist.
Moist, yeah. That's an appropriate term. It's not offensive.
What other challenges have you faced in your career?
I think the biggest area of tension, as my man probably addressed, is with my family, particularly my mum and my parents. You know, when you start out something new, and it was partly my fault. I always find that it's hard to talk to your parents about what you're doing because instinctively you think they don't understand. So me and my mum never really had much of a conversation to articulate what I was trying to do, and she was just watching me every day, like watching YouTube videos, uploading, putting my camera up in my room, and she was like, you're wasting your time, you know, especially when you're qualified as a lawyer. So that was my biggest thing, convincing my mum that, yo, this could be a career and that this could become productive, and you know that it could fly me around the world, you know, and it could buy me a house, all these kind of things. So yeah, that was the hardest part. Me and my mum had a lot of back and forths about it. Then eventually, what's funny is that when I talk about articulating, what really changed her mind was, this is before anything blew up, she listened to one of my poems, and she listened to it and she came back to me and she was like, I really understand what you're trying to do, you know what I mean? And from then, she gave me like a little bit of time, and fortunately within that time, things kind of popped off, you know what I mean? But that was the hardest thing, just really convincing my family that this is going to be productive. And it's had a ripple effect, because now there's so many people in my family that are pursuing like non-conventional outlets, and they're trying to do things they've always been passionate about.
Okay, we've got time for one more question. There we go, one in the middle at the back there.
Yeah, hi. So I liked your story about Dashrath Manji because I'm from India.
So it's accurate? Was it accurate?
Yeah, it was pretty accurate.
I thought you were going to fact check me.
Actually quite impressive, yeah. So this question, sorry about not being familiar with your work, right? But I like the pieces you did, and I want to ask how much of your work is emotion driven, and where do you draw the line? Like, there's got to be a line of reasoning and emotion when you write your pieces. So like, do sometimes you write stuff and then think like, that doesn't make any sense? And you know?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. I think I'd like to say a lot of it is emotional, you know what I mean? I'd like to say that a lot of it is just what I'm feeling, what I think is right, and my truth to the world. But what I've realized is, the more you're aware of people listening, the more like you have an audience, the more you you feel this pressure to justify what you're saying, you know, because I've put videos online and people have just been like, no, that's wrong, and it's not even opinion, if actual like substantive facts have been wrong. But at the same time, you always feel like, now sometimes you have this thing where if I say something, I need to make sure I'm articulating as clearly as possible, because I don't want people to misconstrue it. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, if I'm 100% honest with you. I don't know if it's a good thing, but I'm at this point where clarity is important to me, not just because, oh, I care what someone's going to say, but because as an artist, I want people to 100% understand what I mean authentically. So maybe that's emotion driven, but also maybe there's a logic to it where it's like, what's the point of saying it if it doesn't connect the way I want it to connect? So there is a lot more scrutiny with the pieces. And like I was saying to my man, when I first started writing, I wasn't as meticulous, but now when I write, you know, I'd go over the piece and perform it, change it, have different inclinations here and there. So I think it starts off emotional, and I think logic is what ultimately refines it and makes it something that I'm comfortable to perform in front of people.
Good questions. Big up to you lot. And can we make some noise for Suli Breaks, please?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So much. See you a bit later.
Well, I'll see you later, man.
Yeah. So Suli is going to be back later, basically talking about how he made YouTube and spoken word into a job with an amazing panel as well. And next up, I'm very excited to welcome a TV presenter who's had the most varied career. He's done Blue Peter, he's done the Olympics, he's done Cannonball. It's Radzi Chinyanganya! Have I said that right? Let's be honest.
It's not bad at all.
Yeah, not a bad attempt.
My full name is Radzi Thomas Kingsley Christopher Chinyanganya.
Yeah,
so it's a long name.
It wouldn't fit on my cue card, that one, I'm afraid. Can
I just start by saying, it's Abbie's birthday today. So can we give a round of applause to Abbie's birthday?
Thanks, mate.
21. Who
21
knew?
again, you know, so it's a good year for me. Right then, I think we should get into it. Let's have a little look at your work, shall we?
Thank you.
And you heard it right, this is a world record extravaganza, and we've got 3 world records we're going to try and...
Let's remind ourselves in slow motion of what Greg and I looked like attempting to toot a party popper.
Look at the concentration.
I don't like not saying words, and I had to concentrate then and be quiet.
Oh,
I was really panicking there.
yeah.
It's horrible.
Well, it's time to find out whether you guys have tooted your way to success.
Hello and welcome to day number 12 of the Winter Olympics in South Korea. Today is the day when the blue ribbon event will be contested in the women's downhill. The big question is, will Lindsey Vonn become the greatest ever? Oh! Come on, Tom, put your back into it, son. Even your head would be ashamed. Here's what's coming up. It's Anna from Wiltshire. They'll be dancing in the streets of Wiltshire this evening. Congratulations.
Give it up for Radzi, please. Amazing stuff. Can we take it back, first of all, to like your student years? What did you study?
I studied economics at Loughborough University. Are you guys a lot of you freshers? This is early. This is an early. I remember uni very well. So I actually did a year at Keele Uni. So what happened was GCSEs didn't really revise, did all right. A-levels, same approach. Didn't really revise, didn't do very well. So then I had to go to Keele Uni through clearing, and then did a year there. Loved the course, hated the uni. Moved to Loughborough, hated the course, loved the uni. So let's stay at Loughborough. And so that allowed me to train, did sports. I was training at that time. I wanted to do skeleton bobsleigh. I wanted to be at the Winter Olympics, actually competing. I failed in that endeavour, but subsequently got into TV. So but when I arrived there, I was all about sport. I was all about, at the time, I kind of thought I might want to go into banking. So it was very much a normal process of where my career is going to go. And then over 3 years, in fact, I'll tell you the story. So I was in Pilkington Library in Loughborough, and I had about 5 friends from second year, and I said, what do you want to do after we leave uni? And they all said, I don't know, I've got no idea. Year later, same group of friends, same question. They said, I want to work in marketing. Yeah. I want to work in finance. Yeah. Oh, no, you don't. What are you talking about? And in that 1 year, they decided to conform. And I there and then thought, I'm not spending the rest of my life conforming, doing something I hate, because I hated doing economics. I thought, I'm not spending the rest of my life doing this thing. And it was there and then that I thought, right, I need to chase some unicorn. What do I really want to do? And that thing initially was sport, failed in that, but then latterly TV.
Yeah, because your route into the industry is so interesting. So I think sometimes we see these people on TV, don't we? And we think, they just blagged it. They just got selected out of nowhere. But you've had quite the hustle to get to where you are, haven't you? So tell us about that.
Yeah, it was a long, long hustle. So I spent 2 years training full-time to do skeleton bobsleigh. Failed in that endeavour. Then I thought, right, what am I going to do with myself? So I said, right, I'm going to present. I was presenting a little bit in uni, but I spent 3 years working for free. So I was living in hostels with mice running through the kitchen. I worked as an intern. I worked doing work experience. I was a mascot called Spike the Lion, a mascot called Busby the Bird. I worked at the Olympics, the Paralympics for free. I worked for Kiss FM online, having entered a competition. 25,000 people, came second. And that was my second time entering it. They did it the year before, came I think 25th. And so it was constant no's. I entered a show called Totally Rubbish on CBBC, got nowhere with that. Applied for Blue Peter at the very start of my process of working for free, got down again to the final 2, and they didn't choose anybody for that. I did so many things. I looked, in fact, after I got my job on Blue Peter, I looked back at how much I'd earned over those 3 years, and it was £9,000. So £3,000 a year, because I was working in a leisure centre at Loughborough to make ends meet. I was living mainly as what's called a subordinate, so I was on call. So when you guys get battered and you lose your keys and you can't get into your halls of residence, I was the guy that you called. So I was doing that. That gave me a bit of free food, free accommodation, and was my hub to go all over the gaff and try and do everything that I was doing, because all I wanted to get was a break. And so I would call up sports events and say, do you have a presenter? Do you need someone? I'll be your guy. I'll do it for free, hoping someone in the audience might see me, or someone in the audience might know someone who works in TV that might give me a chance. And so it was this ongoing hustle, which I got low. I actually genuinely got really low. I remember at one stage it got to the point where I didn't have depression, but I was definitely depressed. And at my absolute worst, I remember waking up, because I'd be up to say 5 in the morning following Twitter threads to see, right, who's the producer, who's the person I can contact. And if you know they work for, let's just say, Endemol, I could look online and it would say, for inquiries, go, email jobs@endemoluk.com. Now, if it's Abbie McCarthy, I'd go an email to Abbie@endemoluk.com, then Abbie McCarthy at endemoluk.com, then Abbie.McCarthy at endemoluk, then A.McCarthy, Abbie.M, any combination to try and get the email to go through. I'd call places up and I'd lie and I'd say, I'm here to speak to whoever is in charge of whatever. Invariably, they'd need a name. So one of my other tricks to do was I'd write down a list of names I'd have. So hi there, can I speak to Tom from whatever section? They say, oh, Tom doesn't work here. I say, oh, sorry, wrong number. Call back 5 hours later. Hi, can I speak to John, please, from this section? Trying to get through to one person so I could then start a conversation, tell them what I wanted to do to try and get some advice. Because I'm just a boy from Wolverhampton. I don't know anyone in TV, I don't know anyone in radio, but I want to make this happen. And so every day, so at my worst, I was in bed, and when I used to wake up, I put one foot on the ground, and I'd say, right, we've got one foot on the floor, Radzi. All you need to do is get the other foot on the ground as well. And sometimes at my worst, that would take half an hour, because I felt like I was a failure. Because all my friends, they'd started, they got jobs, they got money. Some of them were going on holiday. I was not going on any holiday. I was going on holiday to Wolverhampton. That was as glamorous as it got. So I felt like I was failing. My mum sacrificed loads for me, so did my dad, and even my little sister. I thought, wow, she looks up to me, and here I am with no job, doing nothing. I was that guy who stayed at the party way too long, because I was at uni an extra 3 years. Even though I wasn't a student, I was there, seeing like Neverland, the next group of young people come in, and oh, what do you do, mate? Oh, I'm the guy who's trying to do something that probably isn't going to happen. And so it was this really arduous journey to get my first break.
But what kept you going then, when you were feeling super low and stuff? Did you just have to believe in yourself and power through?
Okay, there were 3 main things. There's one, I happen to be a Christian, so I believe in God. Number 2, my mum. I had this vision of I wanted to be able to tell my mum that her son wasn't a failure. That was a big thing for me. And finally, I'd gotten so far down the line, so it went from after you graduate, it would then say recent graduate. I was a recent graduate for far too long on my CV, but I realised I could no longer get a grad job. because I'd left it so long. So I'd gone past the point of no return. So now my only options were really to go back to doing the job I was doing when I was 16, so working in Asda or any job like that I used to do back in the day, or persevere on. But then, to add complication to it, I basically got booted out of my halls of residence that I was getting for free. I was going to get booted out on the 23rd of September 2013. And on the 25th of August 2013, that's when I got my offer to have my very first job on Blue Peter. Amazing. So it was right up to the line. And I wouldn't normally talk biblically, but it kind of says in the Bible, it talks about God taking you to the point, your breaking point, but will never take you beyond that point. And so I actually felt like I'd been broken anyway. But looking back, I think actually God had taken me to that point and not beyond. So those three things, God, my mum, and then I almost felt like I had no choice. It's like that Eminem song, you only get one shot. And it was, I had no option to fail. Failure was, in fact, I'd already failed. That's the answer. I felt like I'd already failed. So I applied to over 100 jobs, all of which were failures. And sometimes it took me 2 days to fill out these application forms. And one time, it was a BBC job actually, within 6 minutes they'd replied saying, you've been unsuccessful. And I thought, they're not even reading this. They're not reading this. I spent 2 days doing this. And I was angry and I was upset and I was low. I just carried on.
So who were your kind of inspirations on TV? Were there any presenters you really loved watching and you were like, I want that job?
Do you know, a lot of the guys I look up to are names you shouldn't mention. So Michael Barrymore, Justin Lee Collins, because these guys, they were free, they were loose on TV, and they were funny, and they'd be themselves. But then there were guys like Howard Stern on radio, or Chris Moyles on radio, Tim Westwood. I interviewed Tim Westwood when I was at Loughborough. The dude, I know he's binary, isn't he? You love him, you hate him. I love him, but the guy, true to his word. Little old me, I said, we contacted him, you're coming to Loughborough to do a set. Can I interview you? Yeah, no worries. So he said, we'll do it before the set. This wasn't him speaking to me, this is via his people. So we're going to interview you at 10 p.m. before the set starts, at 11 p.m. before the set starts. He'll do it after the set. Then he stays on in the set. He's true to his word. At 4 in the morning, I sat there and did an interview with a guy that I love, Tim Westwood. There's Tim Westwood, Reggie Yates, lots of guys. Davina McCall, back in the day when she was on Big Brother. Old school Emma Willis on TRL with Dave Berry. There were loads of people. Simon Thomas on Blue Peter, the former presenter. Loads of people that I thought, I'd love to be able to do what they do and just be yourself and get paid to do it and have fun and tell stories.
So as a guy that's getting to live the dream of being a TV presenter, what skills do you think you need? What makes a good TV presenter to you?
I'd say the people who I think are the best are authentic and they're honest, and it's not about themselves. If there's a chance to make something funny, you try and make it funnier. But then when somebody's being funny, you're not going to try and out-humour them. If something's insightful, to try and draw that out of somebody. So I suppose it's being real, I suppose it's being authentic, and actually somebody that's bothered to research. So when you saw me at the Winter Olympics there, what happened was, I was the only guy that's wanted to make a fool of himself. All the other sports reporters, a lot more straight, probably with a longer career than me. But I said, yeah, that's fine, I'll do some funny stuff at the start. But every day, my entire experience at Korea was, we went live at 9 a.m. local time, off air at 2 p.m. So I'd wake up at 6, prep for 2 hours, have breakfast, go live at 9 till 2. Come off air, lunch, gym, and the only gym they had was a single bench press in a hotel room. So you have to use your imagination to make that work. Did that for an hour, 3 hours prep, dinner, 4 hours prep, bed, repeat. Because my whole thing was, if I get one crack at this, one chance to be at an Olympic Games, I want to be competent, I want to be good. I want people, my bosses and the audience, to think, he's not perfect, we're not expecting him to be, but he's giving it everything that he's got. And so when it comes to an event being cancelled, which it did, the very first event we threw to, the alpine skiing, the commentator says, Radzi, very sorry, this event has just been postponed, we'll get back to you as soon as we have an update. Bam, back to me. It was 6-second delay in my ear. So the gallery was in Salford, I was in Korea. So whenever they count you and they say, so going on air in 10, and they count you down to 1, I had to start speaking on 6 because of the 6-second delay. any cues they give. So, for example, you'd say, and here's what's coming up on today's show. And then they'd go, that there on the screen, we'd call that a full frame graphic. So if we have a timetable of what's coming up, you'd say, and here's what's coming up. Then as a presenter, I can read the monitor and say what's coming up. But because it was on a 6-second delay, everything I was doing, I had to fill for that time. So I'd say, there's lots coming up today. Hopefully the people in the gallery will go, oh, that means we should play in this graphic. There's lots coming up today. Yesterday was a great performance by Eve Muirhead, etc., etc. Hopefully today can be as... So there was a lot of challenges, but the point is prep. I'm rambling. I do apologise. Prep and authenticity.
Prep is key. And can we look at some of your career highlights now?
Absolutely. Have you got more?
Yeah, we're going.
Nice one.
We're totally going to show off today. So we've got a selection of clips, and the first one is from Match of the Day.
Kickabout.
My brother-in-arms, John, I can't present and do this, so you okay to help?
Yeah, of course. Let's do it. So we have 20 seconds, 2 meters,
yes.
And you just got to get as many in as you can. Remember, I did this, I got 3, and I did it in a muddy field, and these conditions are a little bit better, so no pressure.
No pressure at all.
Good luck.
Let's do it, right.
Okay. So, Radzi, you're going to go on my whistle?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Come on, Radzi, come on, guys, let's get him going.
Don't be quicker.
No! 7, go. No! Come on.
Unbelievable.
Oh, you got there in the end, it's fine.
In the end. So that was a show called Match of the Day Kickabout. So actually when I got my Blue Peter job, so that moment when I got offered the job, actually at 12 noon, Gareth Edwards from Match of the Day Kickabout said, we'd like you to host Match of the Day Kickabout, and Ewan Vinicum at 1 p.m, so we'd like you to host Blue Peter. So that day, 25th of August, 2013, 1 p.m. and 12 noon, best day of my life.
Oh my God, so you get 2 jobs at once.
Right, yeah, and I like
a
sport. Exactly. It was the whole thing of, I cried as well. I'm not an emotional guy. I cried. All I heard when I got Blue Peter was Salford, 5 days a week. I was out of it. I was absolutely out of it. But that show there is a lot of fun. That was our Christmas special we did. We do a thing called Sav's Big Mouth, where you have to try and kick balls through Sav's mouth, as many as you can. And I knew anything less than 3 was an embarrassment. I got 3 just.
Luckily. And obviously a great part of TV presenting is getting to meet some awesome people, really talented people in their fields, or pop stars, or film stars. So who are some of your favourite people that you've met?
So actually, the best people I've met haven't necessarily been famous in the traditional sense. And so for me, I'm not that fussed about fame, because if someone's famous, it's like back in school, when you were at class in school, everyone knew who you were. It's not that big a deal. To me, it's about what have you done? What have you changed? What stories have you got to tell? So I did a VT for Blue Peter, which was called The Walk That Changed the World. And it was about my hero, Martin Luther King, who walked from Selma to Montgomery and got to meet a reverend. And he was an old man, essentially, but looking into his eyes, knowing that he has met my hero, and this bloke, this just one normal man, not rich, not famous, he had helped change history. So he was one. There was
We've actually got a clip of that, so I'm going to interject.
Hit me.
And let people see it.
Oh, that's really nice. That's from my sister, Rufaro. To get a letter like that from my sister here, in a place that essentially helped change the world and give people equality, that's amazing.
This has been a journey I'll never forget. I've met some inspirational people who risked everything to stand up against something they thought was wrong. What they did didn't take skill, speed, or superhuman strength, but what it did take was courage, more than I could ever imagine. It was a walk that gave black people in America the freedom to vote. It gave them a voice. It was a walk that made people think about how to treat those around them. It was a walk that changed the world.
Amazing. Tell us a little bit more about that and how that was to work on.
So it was an idea that I pitched to Blue Peter, and I basically said this year marks 50 years since Martin Luther King did this walk. I said, I'd like us to do something. But I said, if we're going to do it, I don't want it to be us going to a museum in Salford. We've got to do it properly. And we've got to go to the place where he did it, because I'd never seen civil rights spoken about on kids' TV before. And my mum's from Scotland, my dad was from Zimbabwe, and so although I'm not directly related to that plight, as the son of a black immigrant African father, I felt connected to it, and I wanted to tell that story. But if we can do it, especially through the eyes of the people that were there, and through young people in America now, it would be a story of inspiration. And that is actually the incredible thing about Blue Peter, that if you pitch an idea and they like it and it resonates, then we get to go out there. And to go out there, it was, as soon as I saw that there, actually genuinely brought a lot back, because it's the most humbling experience to literally walk in someone's footsteps and to see how far they've still got to come, but also it's a very privileged position holding a microphone. It's a very privileged position being on screen. And I do a lot of silly stuff. I get gunged, and it takes a lot of effort to get out of this hair. But it's to then also juxtapose that with authenticity and being able to tell real stories of real people that I think change the world. I'm not bothered about Kim Kardashian. I'm not bothered about real pop culture. I love hip-hop music, but I don't love some dance. I'm not bothered about the dance. I know the Macarena. I don't need to know the latest dance. I'm too old for that. So for me, because I love poetry and I love language, and so I like to tell those stories. And those are basically, I want to live a life that I could look at my grandchildren, if I'm lucky enough to have them, and say, let me tell you about a time when, or let me tell you about this man. And that's kind of the role I think I try to have on Blue Peter a little bit.
I think this next clip is going to be a good thing to tell your grandkids. It's when you got to meet the royals. Tell us.
We'd like to give you a gift, which is the most special gift that we have, and it's for doing something very special. We think that special thing is mental health.
I think you guys have inspired so many people, so many children across the country to be able to speak their minds, but also to know that they're going to be listened to and that that's okay. So on behalf of everyone here on Blue Peter, we'd actually like to award you with our highest accolade. It is the gold Blue Peter badge for your Royal Highnesses.
Thank you very much. That's very touching. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. It's very special.
It's very kind.
Yeah, congratulations.
Do you know what? They're actually pretty sound people. I wasn't sure what to expect when they came in. The security comes in about half an hour before. The building got shut down. Now, this is a big studio building where there's a lot going on. It got shut down, and they had this list. And if you weren't on the list, like back in the day when I'm 17 trying to get into a nightclub, if your name isn't on the list, you really are not coming in. But they were actually really, really cool, very down to earth. And for me, again, what's a boy from Wolverhampton doing, shaking the hands of the royalty? That's just, what picture does that create? And I do it mainly for my mum, because I think, do you know what? I'm not fussed about famous people. I'm really not fussed. He's a nice geezer, and she's a nice lady as well. But actually, they're just humans. But for my mum to say, do you know what? Today, my son met the future king and queen of the country. That's basically why I did it. And, you know, even for my dad, he was from a farm in Zimbabwe, in a very, very poor part of Zimbabwe at the time. When he flew over in 1972, the idea that his son would be meeting royalty, especially in the time of the Commonwealth, especially pre-independence for Zimbabwe, especially what the monarchy and regal Britain means, for his son to be shaking hands with that bloke there, that's pretty cool. So that's actually why that means a lot. Not for me personally, but for what it means to the people that are connected to me.
So obviously you have some highbrow guests on Blue Peter, but you also have a lot of fun, and there are moments where it gets pretty silly. And we've got a clip of you and Radio 1's Greg James, which is super special.
Let's remind ourselves in slow motion of what Greg and I looked like attempting to toot a party popper.
Look at the concentration.
I don't like not saying words, and I had to concentrate then and be quiet.
Oh,
I was really panicking there.
yeah.
It's horrible.
Well, it's time to find out whether you guys have tooted your way to success.
Okay, now the record to beat was 75. I can confirm that we did have to disqualify 12 toots.
Wow.
Adam, what did they get?
Overall, your final total was 78.
What a world record to hold. Greg James is going to be here later, by the way, talking about the brand new Radio 1 Breakfast Show, so we're super excited about that.
Do you know what as well? That was his first week on the Breakfast Show. He was shattered. He came up to Manchester. He was very, very gracious. And he gives a lot of himself. Because on Blue Peter, it's not exactly the big one, is it? It's not exactly 958 Usain Bolt's 100-metre world record. But I tell you what, when they suddenly say, this is an official Guinness World Record attempt, you actually go, I want this. I want to have it from Record Breakers days. But yes, and that is the thing about Blue Peter. It's very, very fun. I spend most of my time being very silly. As a man, as an adult, you can't behave how we behave on that show, but it's fun, just like that there.
What is it like working on live TV? Try and kind of explain what it would be like to be on the set of Blue Peter.
Okay, so I would say, so live TV is as silly a time as we have there. Like with anything, you have bosses, and bosses are still going to judge your performance. But when you are live, this is now it. I farted. So basically, I was sat on the sofa, and I needed a fart. So I went for the silent but deadly. So I moved on to one cheek. It was going to be, no one was going to hear. Got it all wrong, and it just... And I remember thinking, did anyone hear that? Everyone heard that. And Lindsay looked at me as if to say, did you just do that? And I thought, yeah, I did. And I thought that was... So it's real. It actually does happen. But it's a mixture of fear, excitement, empowerment, fun. And just before you go live and you hear the Blue Peter theme tune, you do think, this is pretty flipping cool. And of all those years when I used to imagine what it would be like to be stood there is wicked. And then once the red light hits on the camera and you say, hello, welcome to Live Blue Peter, it's awesome. I do a thing called the happy dance on Blue Peter, which is, I just go around in a circle. And kids sometimes come up to me and do the happy dance, or they want to do the happy dance with me. And that, do you know what? That is just the best thing ever, because it resonates. What you're doing resonates. And sometimes the items might be a bit dry, it might be about a book or whatever else, but other times it's wicked. But even when it's a book, it's a chance to tell a story about literacy. I'm from Wolverhampton. Not everyone. I know my friend Winston. He's 55 years old. He can't read. So actually, this is a chance to advocate books and promote reading. And so everything's an opportunity. And also the best thing about kids, they don't judge you. If you have a good time, they have a good time. And then hopefully when they meet you, they still have a good time.
Blue Peter really, though, is just one thing that you do. You do lots of sports presenting. You also dipped into radio quite recently as well. How do you find it adapting between each different job? TV is just TV, like radio is just radio. And just to be absolutely clear, when I was your age, I wasn't sure how... It felt like a magical world looking at radio or TV, and I thought, I don't know if I could get into that. I don't know anyone. It requires... DJ Semtex at Loughborough said this. So he was doing a night, and it flopped, basically, due to the way it was promoted. There were 6 of us in the nightclub. Not a great turnout. So my friend, who was a DJ, said to Semtex, he said, I'd like to take something from tonight. What advice can you give me for getting into radio? And he then said, no cliches. And Semtex took a step back, and he said, okay, I'll tell you the truth. This game is 20% talent and 80% hard work. And I really think talent's overrated. If you want to be an NBA basketball player, if you're not 6'10", it probably isn't going to happen for you. I'm 5'9". It's not going to happen for me in the NBA. But in something like TV, something like radio, something like media, broadcasting, whatever it is, the key attribute is persistence and hard work. When you get an opportunity, it's now about preparation, but it's a different kind of hard work. And so all I try and do is apply everything that has been my hustle and continue that hustle. So it's a hustle that got me a gig on ITV Cannonball. There's a really cool guy called Asif who works at ITV, and he's always been very kind with his feedback he's given me. It came via him, but it's a hustle to get my sports gigs. It's been a hustle when you're on there now with a very critical audience who, if you say Bob when you mean Bill, you're going to get tweets. And on that gig in Korea, we asked people to send in their pictures. They did it via the hashtag BBC Sport. Now, when you do that, I had to search for the pictures myself on Twitter and then tell the guys in the gallery about the pictures we'd seen.
that meant I had to go through all the abuse. Every day I had to look at normally you just go, yeah, I'm sure some people don't like me, and I just ignore it. I had to look at it all. And so you go, get Claire Balding back. Yeah, she is back, mate. She hasn't gone anywhere. She's on later. Or, who's this bloke with ridiculous hair? I don't know what to tell you, mate. And then I thought, one guy said, you can't say very unique. It's unique or it's not. Good point. Took that one on board. It's also called tautology. Wanted to write that back to him, didn't. Held it back. But the difficulty for me is people think that a kids' TV presenter, happy clappy, that's all he's going to have to offer. He's going to come on here, he's going to smile, have a laugh, but that's not what we want. We want a serious journalist. And so one big thing I did was I went on Question Time this year. So I landed from Korea on the Wednesday, and I was sat next to Nigel Farage on the Thursday. And I'm not a guy who gets nervous, but I tell you what, that is squeaky bum time, because when you're on a political show with Dimbleby, and the bit they don't show you is they have this, everyone kind of chats beforehand, and that's what I realised who's my ally? So it's quite an interesting position we find ourselves in at the moment. Are you sort of in terms of Brexit? What did you? I thought, I'm not telling you anything, mate. I'm not telling you anything, old boy. And then what happened was they'd ask you a practice question to the audience, and I knew that was my chance to tell the audience that I'm not stupid. Didn't do that. Confirmed what they thought. Then on the actual show, hit them with a whole fruit. They were surprised. Have them on the back foot. But they weren't expecting me to be articulate in any sense of the word. So I thought, right, I'm going to try and show these geezers that I can actually string a few words together. I've maybe even got a political opinion, but it had to be impartial because I'm working on behalf of the BBC. Yawn. So I had to try and kind of crowbar my opinion into these sterile sentences and sort of just keep my job whilst not having everyone go, he's a bit boring, isn't he? But I was on the edge, I'll be honest. And then Farage is there. You go, that's Nigel Farage. He's quite a big deal. And actually, he's not that bad a bloke when you meet him in person.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Right, now is a good time to throw to questions, I think. I think Jordan is around. Hey. My man Jordan, are you there?
Hey.
Here he is.
Hey. Oh, that's loud. Yeah, so like we said before, if you've got any questions, put your hand up. Don't be shy. We've already got a girl here. If Lou passes you a microphone, thank you for being the first person to ask a question. What's your name?
Sam.
Are you from Preston?
No.
Where are you from?
Birmingham.
And is this your first or second year at UCLan?
Second.
Second. What are you studying?
Journalism.
Take your question away.
Hi, Radzi.
Hey, Team West Midlands, I like you already.
Can I just say, I think you're amazing.
Well, thank you very much, I really appreciate that.
I relate to the depression story a lot, and I kind of know how you feel. So I wanted to ask you, because I'm on to present the news on BBC towards the end of my career. I wanted to know, how do you get the courage to go in front of the camera and not worry about the mistakes you'll make?
I'll tell you why. Because I've worked very hard over those 3 years, mainly flirting with failure. So now that I'm here, all that can happen is I go back to square one. That's the worst that can happen. So while I am here, I'm going to try and put the best foot forward. And I don't mind failing for a decision that I've made, as long as at that moment in time it was the right decision to make. If I'm a boxer and I'm in the ring, I don't mind getting knocked spark out for throwing the right shot at the right time. I would not be able to live with myself for not throwing any shot and then losing on points. So for me, in this game, the only way I will succeed is by taking risks, by putting certain eggs in certain baskets. I take faith in God, and hopefully God will guide me with that. But failure is a serious probability. How many presenters work past 10 years, 20 years? Seldom, whether that's radio or TV. So all I can do is put the best foot forward. I took a risk. I went on Question Time. It could have all gone pear-shaped there, to be honest with you. I've gone on sport. I could have had so many aspersions cast upon me. Now, but I would equally, now I've said that, I wouldn't put myself in a situation that would make me vulnerable. And by that, I mean, I know very little about certain sports. So if they said to me, tomorrow, would you be willing to work on X sport? No, because I'm only going to do it if I'm prepared. because otherwise I'll be vulnerable, and therefore if I fail, I've failed because of my own inadequacy there. So that would be selfish for me to take that job, as to see it as an opportunity and a chance to succeed, when actually I should be sensible and logical. So for me, it's about being strategic, and you've only got so many eggs, and you've only got so many baskets. So choosing those baskets very carefully, and knowing that once you let go of that, you may not necessarily be able to take it back. But equally, I'm not going to retire still holding on to these eggs. They're all going to be in some basket at some point.
Thank you.
Great question. Any more? We'll go to the back and then we'll come back to you, sir. Hello, what's your name, mate? Luke, where are you from?
Originally from Lake District.
Right, come on, Luke, what's your question?
Hey man, so I just had a question about interview technique. So we saw your little clip there before with your interview with Wills and Kate. So I just wonder, when you're interviewing someone like that that's constantly on and off the TV so many times and on so many different interview shows, do you look to sort of bring a unique spin to the kind of interview that you have with that person, or are you just focusing on hitting the key points you've got to get through?
So for me, it's about trying to understand what my role is at that moment in time. So when I've worked for 5 Live, I interviewed Rick Astley a couple of months ago. People aren't bothered about me. They're tuning in to listen to this geezer who's basically a bit of an icon of a certain era of music. So therefore, I'm a facilitator. And if I can emphasize some of the stories by even saying, oh, really? Or maybe adding a kind of little nuggets that I've learnt myself, that's then my job. If my job on Blue Peter is to entertain, it's to be funny. My colleague Lindsay's a bit straighter. I'm probably a little bit more left field. So for me, I start with the who am I in this situation and what can I bring to it? So if you listen to how like Abbie's, for example, dealing with things, what I'm saying, she's going off. She hasn't then said, let me now tell you a story about me. So Abbie's decided in that scenario, because she's got plenty of stories, she used to work as a producer behind the scenes, 3 years of doing that. Now she works in front of the microphone, if you will. Very, very similar story of the hustle. One consistent thing with TV, it's either luck or broadcasting, it's luck or it's the hustle. But I'd say it's about being authentic, back to that point, and it's trying to understand what your role is and never deviating from who you are, because there's nothing worse than hearing some dude trying to be something that they're not. That's how you lose a job. And so, actually, thank you very much for that question, because it's something I have to ask myself.
No, it's something quite interesting, because you said one of your idols before was Howard Stern, and of course, it's a controversial interview technique that guy has, so it was interesting to hear you list him as one of your someone that you look to.
And do you know what? I partly respect him because it's something that I couldn't do. As a shock jock, I wouldn't want to do that, because what I want to get out of somebody is I want stories. I love stories. I love humanity. So for Howard, it's the original clickbait. But it's the best clickbait. It's other forms of bait as well, as you may know if you know his work. But he's unbelievable at getting certain things out of people. But do you know what? To further that point, I don't know if there'd be a place for Howard Stern starting at 20 years old in 2018 now, though.
Well, he's had to drastically change his show. The one that he runs on Sirius is obviously way different to the one in the 80s, so you do have a point.
Mate, I like your knowledge, by the way. This is good.
Oh, cheers.
I think we've got time for one more question. Who's going to be the lucky person?
I think there was a gentleman here that's been waiting. Yes, sir. Lou will pass you a camera. Some good questions. You'll be out of a job at this rate. If you'd like to tell us your name, mate.
I'm George.
Are you a student at UCLan?
Yeah, I am.
What are you studying, George?
Sports journalism.
Second?
First year.
First year?
Yeah.
Oh, welcome to Preston.
Thank you. So my question is sort of sports related. You covered the Winter Olympics, and I think that's something that'd be really cool to do. So how do you sort of remain impartial, because obviously you've got like a national tie sort of thing. So how do you remain impartial when covering something and not let your emotions get the better of you? Because I feel like if I was watching, I'd be like, what are you doing, sort of thing. And then what was the highlight for you at the Winter Olympics?
Thank you for that question. Just because your hand was up as well, what was your question as well? Yes. Fine, I'll answer both. So I'll come to you now, I'll come to this. In fact, I'll start yourself, sir. So I love sport, that's my default, and as you will have it yourself, I've got opinions on sport. But back to the answer that I gave before, it's about what's my role. So if I'm stood next to Denise Lewis, or if I'm doing the World Rally Championships in a couple of weeks' time, if I'm stood next to Sébastien Ogier, my role is not pundit. I'm not an expert in that regard. What I can do is I can allude to something I think of. So what sports do you like? Okay, let's go for Olympic diving then. Let's go for something properly random. You got Jack Lowell, and if I were to speak to him and I possibly thought he's underperformed in that particular event, what I might say is, as a man with an Olympic gold medal to his name, speaking to whoever it might be, Steve Bunce, as a man with an Olympic gold medal to his name, Steve, how would he assess that performance, do you think? That would be my way in. But the beautiful thing about sport is there's basically no script. So you have a running order where you work out what's going to be in the show. But the nature of sport, it's an expanding amorphous. It changes a lot, especially in a multi-sport thing. So you're using the facility of this expert, this pundit, rather than myself. The only time I might give an opinion would be if I'm linking to something. But the premise of, I'd say, the BBC's role is to be in support of the home nation, but not biased towards. So that's, and I don't mind playing that role actually, because if I'm sat at home or on a chair like this, I could give any old opinion about anything. But my specific role there is a facilitator, and to allow this this series of pictures to emerge. So we're going to see an athlete, let me remind you of how good they are. Go to VT. Come out of that. Let me remind you of some of their best performances. Let's talk about their form this season. Right, let's see them now. That's my job, rather than, weren't they rubbish? That's not my role. That's their role if you want to go down that route. With regards to the hustle, how my process happens, I looked at it like a spider's web. I'll be really quick with this. I looked like a spider's web. I was trying to get right place, right time, but I didn't know where the time was, I didn't know where the place was. So I had to put myself in as many places as I possibly could. I was trying to attack sport with commentary, doing commentary for free in various events. Football, athletics, netball, volleyball, you name it, I was doing it. I turned up to events. I was a master called Spike the Lion. I worked for the Olympics for free, the Paralympics for free. I worked for Kiss FM off the back of coming second in this competition online. And all it was, I needed something to land. Now, as my final message to you guys, I really am, and I'm not trying to just, I don't know, blow smoke up your ass. I'm not a talented guy. I'm just a guy that's worked hard. There's only so much time in a day, so where do you put yourself? One thing some people ask me is, Abbie loves music. How can you make that qualifiable? So I say, I love music. Abbie says she loves music. Well, how can she prove it? Well, she can prove it because she's worked in hospital radio, in local radio, perhaps DJing sets, perhaps on social media. She specifically talks about specific music artists. So there's something to show, very specific and qualifiable, that she has a passion for something which I cannot show. In sport, how can I show because the key is to demonstrate. Otherwise, I'm not separating myself. If you don't have something and you can't demonstrate something yet, use this time in uni to A, work out what you do want to demonstrate, and B, start to demonstrate it. So when you then go to a commissioner and you email somebody, don't say, I want to work in TV, I want to work in radio. Give them a specific thing you want to make. So whether it's something in radio and it's about, like, I don't know, Nike trainers from, the 1990s. I love Nike trainers from the 1990s. They might go, I don't like that. But when you arrange the meeting to meet them, they might like you. And you're trying to have as many meetings like that as possible, pitching as many ideas, not random stuff. I can't talk about women's rights because I'm a geezer. But for example, I might be able to talk, for example, about, let's say, the plight of being the son of an immigrant, for example, a bit random. But that premise of, oh, shut up, don't worry. The premise being, how can you be the best you possible? How can you demonstrate that and thus give yourself the best chance of the win? Because any person in this room can do it. And we live in a world now where we say, work hard, you can do it, achieve your dreams. That to me is fine, but it's superfluous, it's futile. It's like giving a hungry man a packet of skips, it's just useless. But if you focus that endeavour at the areas of opportunity, for me, that's where the win happens. And when you get inside that door, let some of your mates in. If they're willing to work hard as well, bring other people in, and don't stop working hard. Just let this be the beginning.
Radzi, you've been amazing. Could literally talk to you for hours, I think. Make some noise for Radzi, everybody. Thank you so much.
Now, just finally, it would be remiss of us, I know it's early, when it is somebody's birthday, we have to sing a song. So for Abbie, she loves music, so she's going to love this really. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, happy birthday to you.
Oh, good voices, everyone.
Happy birthday
I've
to
got my phone, I
you.
wanted to film it.
Happy birthday, dear Abbie. Happy birthday to you. Woo!
Thank you very much, Preston. Thank you, Radzi. See you in a bit. How are we doing? Are we good? It's warm in here, isn't it? But are we good? Are you with me, Preston? Good, good, good. So my name is Abbie McCarthy. I feel like I haven't properly introduced myself and you've just sung for me. I'm a presenter for BBC Music Introducing and BBC Radio 1, and it is my pleasure to host the Radio 1 Academy today. And we move on to our next panel, which is a good one. We are going to meet the team behind Hollyoaks. So, just to give you a little bit of info on Hollyoaks, it's been on Channel 4 now for over 23 years. It's obviously aimed at a really young audience. It tackles some pretty tough topics and it's won lots of awards for that over the years as well. Now, let's take a little look at the series in action.
Oh look, it's your girlfriend. Is that the best you've got?
Go away! I'm in love with Cleo.
There is no cancer.
No, you're insane.
Don't you ever say that! This is your chance to destroy him. You stay away from my husband. I'm so happy all our troubles are behind us.
You made me like this.
Kim is my bargaining chip.
My little brother.
Does Cindy know that you killed her parents?
My name's Harley. I'm a friend of Perry's. She shouldn't be somewhere like this. Oh, you're worthless now, just like me. She's just a child!
Oh, she's so close. Hey, there's got to be another way.
Did you see anyone come out that door?
Hello, Father.
I'm enjoying the show. I mean, it's what you wanted, isn't it? It's what you all wanted!
Can I get a round of applause for Hollyoaks, please? Amazing stuff there. We're going to start with the on-screen talent first of all. I'm going to bring on Haydn Duckworth, who plays Ollie Morgan. But first of all, let's see how he arrived on the show.
Take care, Mandy.
Luke! Ollie, what are you doing? His mum, she's really angry.
Oliver, I told you to wait in the cab. Go!
Please welcome Haydn! Hello, you okay? Yeah, and you? Yeah, good, thanks.
Yeah, not bad, thank you.
You brought pal?
I've got one as well. Hello.
Hello, you
For
okay?
those who don't know, this is Richard who plays Alfie on the show. Hello!
This is nice, double whammy.
Indeed.
Let's give it up for Richard as well, please.
Hi.
So, how did you both get your role in Hollyoaks? I'm sure a lot of people in this room kind of want your jobs.
Wow, well. You want to go first or shall I? Go on. Okay, I'll go first. Auditioned for it. I've have an agent. First of all, did an audition down in London in the Spotlight Studios. Quite a small one, little read, about one page. About 2 hours later, suddenly it was, oh yeah, can you come up to Liverpool tomorrow to do a screen test? Yeah. They always do that last minute. It's Very last minute, yeah. that call. Yeah. And then a couple of recalls, and then was the phone call at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Thursday of, oh yeah, okay, so you've got it. At this point I was certain that I hadn't got it. It had been weeks since I heard for them. Can you be up there tonight to start 9 o'clock tomorrow morning for your orientation and stuff? And that was the day the tube strikes were on.
Good.
So I had about 20 minutes to get the last train I could to Liverpool. It helped, I think, because I didn't have time to freak out, be like, oh. He was like, oh, I've got it, right, I need to pack a bag, I need to go, straight off. Oh, I had a good 4 months of freaking out. They made me wait out a bit, to be fair. I had a bit of freaking out. But for me, it was, coming on my iPad. Use it. So basically, my nana got me into it. So she's an ex-Ron Corrie. So she just thought, what's the best way to show off your grandkids? Sent me and my 2 little twin brothers into an agency. Once you're in an agency, you go for auditions for anything, Game of Thrones, Hollyoaks, anything. And if you get the role, you get the role. And that's how it is. That's how I've come on it. That's why I'm here now.
Did you always want to act, both of you? Was that always the dream job?
Let you answer first. For me, I've always enjoyed it. I did drama at GCSE and things because I'm only 17. And I've always loved acting, but it was 50-50 genuinely between maths and drama.
Really?
Genuinely, so I don't know how I've managed it, but I've managed it. What it is? Yeah, I'm a bit of a more boring story as I've been doing acting in, vaguely professional and amateur since I was about 5. So I've always been on that. However, I've got that mathsy side of me as well, because for my A-levels I did theatre studies, music technology, English literature and physics. What a weird combination.
Mate, I was going to do economics, maths and physics.
Damn!
I know, I'm not even that
When
smart.
were you planning on sleeping?
Good question.
Yeah.
So we know a little bit more about the two of you now, but this session is all about the whole team. Before I bring them on, tell us a little bit about what it's like to work on the set of Hollyoaks.
Tell you
How many
what.
people involved? Are they all nice?
Incredible.
I
Must be
can't,
like one
I
big
can't describe
family.
it.
It is,
I tell
that's-
every single one sat here now, being an actor is the biggest buzz you can have, genuinely.
Yep.
Like, finishing a theatre production,
Yeah.
200 people standing up clapping.
Exactly. You stood on a stage and there's 1,000 people there saying, for the last 2 hours we have enjoyed your work, thank you. You can't beat that. It's addictive, that buzz. Yeah. But like, with TV, because it's a bit different with that, because there is no other interaction, the family at Hollyoaks, I know that word's overused, everyone says it really is. And
Fair enough, when you watch that little clip, everything's really dramatic and everything's really serious, everyone's crying their eyes
Yeah.
out. But on set, it couldn't be more different. You're always having a laugh, it's always calm. It's like a big family, mate. It's cool.
Yeah, you really look, and genuinely look out for each other as well. That's a really nice thing.
Oh yeah, because granted, when you start, I was terrified. 17-year-old lad coming into this, it's a massive, like, it's been running for how many years?
I know exactly
Oh.
what we just said, 23 I believe, or just over. Yeah, I remember your first day, I think. In fact, I was in your first scene. Yeah,
Okay,
it was the scene just after that one. You run in, throw your dad on the floor and scream at him. You did an amazing job.
So I'm about to bring on the person that is responsible for writing all these scenes that you get to act out, the award-winning writer Rowan Bardsley. But first of all, I want to show one of her most famous episodes. It actually won a soap award. But just to warn you, obviously Hollyoaks is known for tackling some pretty tough topics, and that can definitely be said for this clip.
Why didn't you tell me the article was about me? Because I've done it too. When? Before we all got called into Sinclair's office. Things haven't exactly been great at home. Ever since Zach hurt Daniel, it's like I'm invisible or something. Well, doing that isn't the answer. I don't want you to end up like me. If you don't like doing it, why don't you stop? Because I can't. It's like an addiction or something. It's all I think about. Every time I do something wrong, every time I feel bad about myself, every time someone says something horrible. You know, sometimes you get so upset, it's like everyone hates. Yeah, and this is like a release.
A very intense, but obviously an amazing scene. Please welcome Rowan! Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Academy. So obviously the clip we just saw, you won a soap award for that. That's amazing. It must have been so great to see your work, recognised at that kind of level.
Yeah, well, and it should say it won best episodes. It's not just my work, it's a massive team effort that's gone into that. But yeah, it was really great, especially for this episode, because obviously it's exploring teenage self-harm, which is a bit of a taboo subject and something that we wanted to start a dialogue about. And I think that hopefully winning that award helped kind of spread the message a bit further.
And how did you get into your job? Did you always want to write?
Yeah, I always wanted to write. I wasn't necessarily sure what I wanted to write to begin with. Thought I might have wanted to be a journalist for a while, but how I got into my job, it's quite tricky. I knew that when I left uni that I wouldn't be able to just walk into a writing job. So to begin with, I just tried to get any job in TV, and even that proved very difficult. But eventually I got some low-level jobs in production entertainment. But really my break in drama came when I got a job as a storyliner at Hollyoaks. And I don't know if anybody knows, but in soap there's a full-time story team that produce and come up with all of the stories that you see on screen. They write it in like a prose document and send it out to all the script writers, and then we write the scripts based on that. So I did that for a few years, made myself indispensable in that team, and then I said, please give me a script. And they did, and sorry, I'm a bit nervous. Now I've written 56.
What is it you love about Hollyoaks in particular? Why is it such an amazing soap to work on?
I think for me it's the variety of stories we get to tell. We get to tell really bonkers stories with people stealing other people's lives and serial killers running around, but we also get to tell really serious, research-driven issue stories, and then affair stories, just anything really. And we also get to break format, like that episode was told from different perspectives, and it was shot in different ways depending on who you're following, and that's something that the other soaps don't necessarily do as much. So that's really fun.
Yeah, that's definitely what I think of when I think of Hollyoaks. You really like tackle big social issues like straight on, don't you? But how do you go about writing those scripts? Because it's quite tough sometimes, I imagine. And you've got to be factually correct and stuff sometimes as well, I guess. And think about how people would feel in those situations. Yeah, how is that as a process?
It can be really difficult and emotionally draining, but I think it's really research is the key. We have a whole research team at Hollyoaks who are brilliant, and they work with charities, and they help us talk to people who are actually experiencing the issues that we go through. I know that you met people, didn't you, for your story?
Yeah. With the schizoaffective disorder story that we've just done over the past year, the research team were absolutely incredible, meeting with Mind, being able to talk to actual sufferers with, for example, schizoaffective disorder. Talk to Johnny Benjamin, who is an amazing mental health campaigner. I don't know if any of you guys know who he is. Go watch Stranger on a Bridge, it's amazing. Being able to sit with him for, I think, literally about 3 hours and talk about every part of it and his life, and for the story guys, it's great to get the thought processes and how to, like, the writing, that kind of stuff, but for an actor as well, being able to get the small physical little bits that wouldn't necessarily be in the story.
From first hand. So my storyline, I had an abuse storyline, which was very hard and very difficult, I can imagine, to write especially. So I had a big meeting. I've had about 3 or 4 meetings with survivors who work closely with people who have come forward after being abused. So for me, actually speaking to someone who's been through it, who's basically been in my shoes of what I have to portray,
it's invaluable.
Yeah, it's invaluable. It's like perfect for what we need to do.
How do you prepare then for those harder storylines? Because your character's been through it quite a lot recently.
Well, both of us have, to be fair. A lot of hard work and graft, really. Just you've got to work at it. Look at research, like for example, speaking to survivors. That's a good example. Obviously, I'm always getting tips from people I work with, say Gary Lucy, Susie Amy. That type of thing, yeah.
Okay, before we meet the rest of your team, let's have a little look at the moment when you won the Soap Award.
Okay, the nominations for the best single episode are Kane and Faith Flashback Emmerdale, Doctors, Max's Last Stand, EastEnders, 3 Mothers, 3 Daughters, Hollyoaks, Eva and Aiden's Wedding Debacle, Coronation Street.
Who's self-harming? No one. You should talk to me about anything like that. That's what feels the same. If you don't like doing it, why don't you stop? Because I can't. It's like an addiction or something. It's all I think about. I've done it too. Why don't you just try it?
And the winner is 3 Mothers, 3 Daughters, Hollyoaks.
A round of applause. I always love when those things happen. They pan around to everyone else that hasn't won, and they look absolutely livid. Right then, let's meet the rest of your lovely team. So we have Colette Shard, who is the head of production, Jack Whiston, who is an editor, Andy Moore, who is a camera assistant, and Faye Ward as well, who is head of makeup. It's going to get really cosy. So we give them a big round of applause. Wow, there's lots of you. Okay, I'm just going to go down the line and basically find out your job and how you first got into it. So let's start this side.
Hi, I'm Faye. I'm the head of makeup. And initially I got into it because I had a passion for makeup and hair. Straight from school I went to college and learned all I could do about hair. I became a hairdresser and got into makeup, got into the freelance world, and then the rest is history. But I think how I got into it was the word passion. I love makeup.
Hi, I'm Jake. I'm an editor on Hollyoaks. So obviously that's after everything's been filmed and the person cuts it together at the end. I got into it basically through work experience. Always wanted to edit since remember being in college and doing my own first little daft trailer. And yeah, just started as an assistant editor, do some work experience, and then finally worked my way up to an editor. So yeah.
Hi, I'm Colette Shard, I'm head of production. But my route in was an advert in the Liverpool Echo to work on Brookside, showing my age now. But I started working in the art department, and I was there sort of many years, but I also did all the nuts and bolts within the art department, rostering and sort of, so my interest, I wanted to get into production. So after about sort of 4 years in art department, I moved across and became a junior production manager. And through many years of work with an amazing team, I then worked a lot of like children's dramas as a line producer. Did the first 10 years of Hollyoaks, then came back about 4 years ago as head of production. So sort of working at Line Pictures, you do get opportunity to have a look at various roles within there. So not only do you have to maybe, sometimes people don't actually know what they want to do in this industry, but they've got a passion for it. So it does give you opportunity to sort of come in at a lower level and see where you want to go. But we always have opportunity for that.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Andy, I'm a camera assistant. After university I did work experience at Line Pictures and then became a freelancer for a few years and then finally became staff about 5 years ago. Always been passionate about being in cameras and doing camera work, so I'm lucky enough to do that as my job. And as Colette said, Line Pictures is a good place to go to progress your career. I've recently been stepping up as a main camera operator. I worked on that one that won the award, which I'm quite proud of. And recently been away to Magaluf filming Magaluf and Hollyoaks, Hollyoaks and Magaluf rather, which was great. Yeah, that's me.
Now from talking to all of you, teamwork is obviously so important. You all really need each other. You all have to collaborate on a day-to-day basis. Talk to me a little bit more about how you work together. What's like a typical day like on the Hollyoaks set, or is there not a typical day?
Not really, I mean each day's different. Each day's different. But yeah, teamwork's important. I think everyone's got their own different specific
role. Yeah. Well, Dave, for me, example, when I'm filming my abuse stuff, it's obviously very difficult. And one thing that helped me out, I always had a producer on set with me. But usually it was Matt Anderson, is it? Matt, who was always on set. So if I had a question, obviously it's always going to be difficult when you're filming this type of stuff. If I had a question, anything I didn't understand, if I was uncomfortable, I'd see if I could talk with him.
Yeah, I had that as well for mine.
You got one of them as well?
Yeah, I had Matt as well.
I thought it was just...
Sorry to break it to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, it's... With that thing, is there any kind of the same? I would say it's the same kind of format, but every day has so many different challenges and different ways you're filming because you're in different sets, you've got different scenarios, any stunts that are going off that day, any props you needed. That'll always throw something into the mix. Light, the sun if you're filming outside, cloud,
I don't think
speckled
people realise
cloud.
how bad that is, the sun.
Or how many planes fly overhead every day, like every hour.
But as far as teamwork, when we're given these really difficult storylines, like me, abuse, yours was, what was it?
Schizoaffective, yeah.
Yeah, so we we had the responsibility to do justice, and without all this team here, we wouldn't be able to do that. So me working with survivors helped me massively. I don't think I would have done it as well as I did. So we all just worked together to do it justice, basically.
And I think when people think of TV, they always think that it's like quite glamorous. And obviously you get to go to the soap awards and look lovely, but it's, I imagine,
There's
quite
nothing glamorous about crying all the time.
I think I imagine it's like a lot of hard work as well, and you know,
Oh, yeah.
for you guys as actors, you're obviously really emotionally invested in your characters.
Yeah, definitely, especially when you're going through a very busy time. For me, getting up at 5:30, getting home at 8:30 every day, it's difficult, it's graft, but you enjoy it and you get through it.
You can film for, do a good 12-hour day, you know, you've got an hour for lunch in the middle, but if you're doing dramatic stuff all day, that's keeping yourself in the mental headspace to cry for nearly 12 hours.
Oh yeah, you're drained, you go home, you're still
emotionally
crying.
draining. And I mean,
you're at home eating your tea, crying your eyes out.
I mean, on the physical side, we can't really complain as to this man over here is lugging. How heavy are those cameras?
Yeah.
They weigh an absolute ton.
Yeah.
Just for hours and hours.
And when you're messing your lines up on purpose, just to make it hurt a bit more.
Yeah.
especially that the one that won the award was a handheld camera, which like got a stabilising gimbal. So I had to hold it out forward like that for about a week, and my arm just literally shaking.
But you're obese, Andy, so it's fine.
Yeah, it's luckily
But it's like any job you've got a bit of graft to do. Every job you've got a graft. But with this, you've got a good reward at the end, haven't you?
Absolutely.
And obviously it's a daily show, isn't it? So what's like the turnaround like for you guys in the production and the editing team to get everything ready to air each night?
It's a beast of a show. Obviously, we put a lot. Out. You know, we put over 250 episodes out a year, and that is no easy feat, to be honest.
No joke.
It's like a feature film, a week's worth of footage go out every week.
Exactly. So you know we've got a quick turnaround, but obviously, and also in that you've got so much passion and people are so driven to do what they want to do. But obviously, you've also got to get it done in like a very short amount of time sometimes. So it's that's,
no being late.
Toughest part of it. Yeah, no being late.
No being late.
Punctuality, very very important. Absolutely.
I was about to say that when you say it's a long day, coming from the makeup department, the makeup girls are in. I mean, we have a storyline.
First in and
We're first in and last out,
Oh,
yes.
wow,
And,
yeah.
I mean, we have a really big makeup team, and everyone has a different sort of passion of what they do. But in particular, we had the storyline about, was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was like 2 years ago, the Stand Up to Cancer one.
And we had to do Stand Up to Cancer and
Ball caps.
Ball caps.
3 hours.
We used to be in every morning at 6, wasn't it?
Just before 6. Yeah.
To create the look that when I was on screen, and we had to maintain that look all day because, believe me, under a ball cap it's quite warm. And then at the end of the day we had to remove it, but you know, it won all awards and it was really realistic. But definitely it's a long day, it's a fabulous day. No 2 days are the same,
Nope.
but realistically it's not something you turn up for at 9 o'clock and go home at 4. It definitely, you need to have that drive to know that the day begins very early and it can also end quite late. But so long as you're aware of that and you know that you're in all weathers, then it's a fabulous job
reward's
to
worth
have.
it.
It's absolutely, definitely worth it.
What do you think's the best piece of advice that someone's ever given you?
Go
That's really
for it.
helped you in the industry.
Just go for it.
Yeah.
Don't think I'm going to try and do it and then get put down. 'Cause granted, auditions are scary. The first one I went to, you are shaking, but if you go for it, you go through about 3 or 4, you're fine. It's like anything, just go for it. That's what I'd say. Yeah, getting your stride. I like getting your stride, yeah.
On the topic of auditions, I've got a good one from a teacher I was told once. What is it? You need to grow the skin of a rhino, but never let it harden your heart.
And what's that mean?
Any like poets in the audience can tell him. No, with auditions in particular, because that's a very specific actory thing, is the constant rejection that will come because you think we've appeared out of nowhere. That's the first thing you will have heard of any of us in, and it's like years and years of work, and any job you get, you can guarantee you will have been denied for a
And it's quite brutal. You're not told as well. So if you go for an audition,
Yes.
it's a really big thing. Yeah. So Game of Thrones, say for example, you probably all watch Game of Thrones, for example. And if you get an audition for Game of Thrones, you're buzzed, you're excited. And if you go for it, you can hear 2 weeks later, you can never hear at all. You never know what you did wrong. You never know if it was because your eye colour, your height.
Yeah, you'll never know if it was something you could have done or something that's completely out of your control. Because particularly with TV and even further with film, there are so many factors to do with casting that are essentially nothing to do with
Because you've got to think how many people are going for it. They can't give out 500 different...
Well, exactly.
You did this, that, wrong, that
After
wrong.
like the
You can't
first
do that.
recall, essentially everyone there could do the job.
Yeah.
And it's just, are you exactly what the director thought of when you read the character when you walk in the room? And that's liberating in the way that you know that you couldn't have done anything else, but incredibly frustrating.
Yeah,
because
I
it
got,
isn't in your control.
I did something. It was for an Under Armour advert type thing, and I got down to that. I got down to the last 2, and I didn't get it because I backed my nails.
I would have been awful. Mine are shocking.
I've still not stopped. I've not learned from it, but I didn't get it because I backed my nails. So that just shows.
Any advice on that so far?
Well, for me, you've got to make the most of the opportunities you get. You really do. I mean, if you get like a week's work experience somewhere, something like that, you've got to know before you go ahead who you want to talk to and stuff like that, and what you want to do, and really get a grasp of what's going on in the company, and really just make the most of it. Like I say, it's really important. So when I first started, I was an assistant editor. So I wanted to spend as much time with the assistant editors as possible, because I knew when I did work experience, I'm not going to become an editor straight away. I'm going to go in and be an assistant first. So I want to spend as much time as possible as I could with the assistants, because that's the job that I'm going to be going into, basically. So yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, if you want to get... Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Just be ambitious, know where you want to get to, and make sure people know where you want to get to, but don't think that you can just get there straight away.
Yeah.
Be really, really passionate about the jobs that you're doing on the ladder up, because I would never have been given an opportunity on the writing team had I not worked as hard as I could in the story team. And there were people that we had come into the story team who just wanted to be writers, made that very clear, didn't try very hard, just expected to get handed a script. It doesn't work that way. You have to be really, really passionate about the job you're doing in order to get up the ladder.
Yeah, so don't be scared to start small. So for someone that's working so hard, we've got 5 different sets every single day filming, you won't be able to jump straight in. It'll be very difficult to jump straight in and just be straight up cameraman. You've got to start from the bottom. Don't be scared to work your way up, because it will happen.
Yeah, and it's the idea of kind of like whether or not luck exists to you manufacture your own luck by working your butt off, being as prepared as possible, because opportunities do come, and timing is a thing you can't control. But when that opportunity comes, if you have put the work in and you are prepared, you can use it for everything it'll give you.
And linking back to when I said just go for it, get your foot in the door. As soon as you've got your foot in the door, you're onwards and upwards, so just go for it.
In this room's probably sat next bunch of these guys. Get to know them. Say hello.
Yeah, it's probably true. In fact, it probably definitely is true.
Turn to the person to your left and shake hands.
To finish off, we're going to have a little look at what's occurring in the most recent on-air story. So this is a clip from last night's episode.
What is that murderer doing back here?
My dad didn't kill anyone.
Oh, there's a pig flying over her head.
Lisa's death was an accident. The police looked into it, and there wasn't a case against me.
Well, tell our hunter that. He lost the love of life because of you.
I loved her too. And I have lost everything. Even my precious pub.
Yeah. Well, it's my pub now, so you can wheel your wheels back out the door. You're bad.
You heard her. Hit the road, Mac.
Now, before I open it up to questions, I wondered if there's anything you guys can tell us about, like, forthcoming storylines. I want the juice. I want the gossip.
Stay quiet. Let's stay quiet. Let's just
going to put this away.
Well, the autumn trailer came out yesterday, so you should all check that out, so we can say that we've got a big storm brewing in October that's going to cause some catastrophe across the village.
Are you involved in the storm?
I'm staying quiet about anything like that.
Good answer.
Okay, so it's going to be an exciting few months. Great.
Yeah, definitely.
Jordan, are you there? Are you in the audience? I can't see you.
Hey!
Hey.
Sorry, guys. I annoy myself sometimes. Yes, any more questions, guys, for the Hollyoaks crew? We've got a lady here. Hi, what's your name?
Becca.
Where are you from, Becca?
Warrington.
Ask away.
Hi, I did an English speech about Hollyoaks based off like the John Paul rape storyline, and I got kind of like mocked about it just because like I like Hollyoaks. What do you do with any criticism, or how do you like conquer it?
You're bound to get criticism in everything you do, so you just take it on the chin and carry on. That's what we do. I know, me, especially my abuse storyline, I'm always going to get grief because it's a very touchy subject, but to me, I already know people have come through about it, so that's me done. I don't care what anyone else says it's negative, I only care I'm positive, so...
Yeah, know that you've put the hard work in, what you've got you deserve, you've worked hard for it, and your hard work shows, and if someone hasn't seen it, it frankly doesn't matter.
Great question. Any more? Got a lady here. What's your name?
Millie.
What are you studying?
Media studies, photography and graphics.
At UCLan?
No, at Blackpool Sixth Form.
Right, okay, so you're thinking of going to uni maybe?
Yeah.
And what's your question for us?
Do you ever find it difficult to disconnect yourself emotionally from your storylines?
Oh, that's an amazing question.
It is actually.
Yes, and yes, that is hard because, as we were saying, you know, going through with putting yourself in the mind space of someone who's been abused, putting yourself in the headspace of someone who's suffering from mental illness.
It depends how you get yourself to places, because to cry, not everyone can just... If you said to me now cry, you'd find it difficult, anyone else would. It's how you get yourself to that point. And sometimes the way to get yourself to that point, it's like an emotion, you're not just going to be able to turn it off.
Emotional
like
triggers,
switch.
yeah. There's many different ways you can reach that, and it's really important.
But then again, you're helped out though. You are helped out. You've got tasty things. You don't...
This lovely lady here.
People don't realise.
She has an amazing toolkit of things.
Yeah, so basically you blow something in your eye. It feels imagine not blinking for a day. That's what it feels like.
Pulling back the curtain here. Do you want to talk about all the different ways where you can make us cry?
I can make you cry by standing on your toe, but I don't.
You've done that before.
We do actually. We have to be really careful, but because actually, if you put it in the eye, then we lose time, and we can't lose time in TV. Time is money. But we do use tear stick, and we might use glycerine, or we might use literally an eye drop. But usually we also have a tear blower, and it works wonders. I can make many of mine cry.
But speaking about disconnecting, obviously I had a really difficult storyline, and being 16, if you do find it hard, they will always help you. Like, the amount of times I've heard safeguarding as I've been filming is ridiculous, but basically what that is, it just helps me out. So say I did a really difficult storyline, scene with someone called Buster, who is my abuser in the show. I'd be at a taxi home, they would always look after me, I'd always have someone with me, and I wouldn't have to be in filming straight away the next morning. So if you do find it difficult, they will always help you. That's the most important thing.
Any more questions? Thanks, guys.
There's some guys down the front.
Oh, yeah. Do you know what? That's my fault, just being at the back here.
You just didn't want to walk all the way around it, did you?
Yeah, CBA. The gentleman with the glasses, what's your name? And what's your question for us, mate?
That's two mistakes.
How have you kept the show going on for so long?
That is a good question.
Wow.
We don't know.
Can I take
Because you guys keep watching.
Yeah.
Well, we have an amazing crew at Fanbase, but we also have an amazing sort of like story team, editorial team that come up with the great stories. Because we are in everybody's living room sort of 5 days a week. So it is a collaboration. It's, and in order to, the production team facilitate those great storylines, the crew film the great storylines, and it's just everybody works really hard together, and with the press and the PR as well, what's current, I think Hollyoaks deals with issue-based stories very, very well, compassionately and carefully, and we do a lot of research. And I think we do keep ourselves current. We're sort of aware of what is going on outside. So I think it is a collaboration.
Yeah, hard work and teamwork. And we also, I think, we need to give Hollyoaks credit. We tackle things some bigger soaps don't always have the confidence to. Like my abuse storyline, I think it's 17 years now. My dad on the show, Gary Lucy, tackled that. He was the first person ever to do something like that. So yeah, I think that's one of the main reasons as well.
It's on that topic. I think something our esteemed executive producer said is that we have this ability, being on particularly at 6:30. We're a tea time soap, as he would say, but we have that ability. We're in people's living rooms at that time when everyone is sat down having dinner, and that is the perfect time to spark conversations with people. And while people will say, "Oh, it's only a young person's soap." Hell yeah, it's a young person's soap. That's when you want to get in on the ground floor and start using productive conversations with people about mental health, about abuse, about eating disorders. I know
bringing awareness to people who are actually going through it.
Exactly. Before negative thought processes begin to kick in, get in on the ground floor and start building a new generation of people who can tackle these things properly and talk about them productively. And I cannot wait to see what those people can do.
I know factual. After there was a big week of abuse that was shown on screen. I know there was a spike in people coming forward. So that in itself just shows what the effect it has.
Any more questions, guys? Been good so far. Go on, we'll go for somebody at the back. The gentleman in the...
We will get to you at the front.
You are a gentleman, thank you for that, in the white cap. What's your name?
It's Adam.
Where are you from?
Bristol.
What are you studying, mate?
Sports journalism.
First or second year?
First year.
Okay, you liking Preston so far?
Yeah, it's alright.
Good. Have you been out on the bays yet?
probably best to keep that quiet.
Okay, do you know what? I forgot, it's not just me and you in the room.
I like this guy.
That's an amazing answer.
I like this guy.
What's your question?
Basically, well, I'll say it quietly. I watch Emmerdale usually, but I do watch Hollyoaks sometimes. But just based on observation things, more for like the writing and the casting side, you notice there's a higher percentage of like a lot younger actors and actresses in the soap. Is that like part of the sort of the point of Hollyoaks, just to speak to younger viewers, or is it just
I think,
sent to happen like that?
Absolutely part of it is that we do speak to a younger audience that maybe the other soaps don't get. I think we have a really high percentage of 16 to 24-year-olds that watch the show. And there isn't much teen drama on British TV, and we do feel a responsibility to tackle those issue stories and tell stories that are just for them. But we obviously do have older characters, and it's a show for everybody. But yeah, I would say predominantly we're aiming for young people.
Yeah, in fact, you've just reminded me, I was literally about to say something about this. About keeping the show running, and also on that topic, I can't think of a show in this country that's a better great launching platform for young actors at the moment.
I'm 17, damn right.
Exactly. I came in when I was 18, I've been here 3 years, I've seen so many people. You look at you'd be amazed how many people you have heard of actually started at Hollyoaks. You don't know, but they did. And also with that idea of keeping it fresh is because you've always got that slowly rotating cast of younger actors that really helps to bring new people into the show. Because once you've got a new character, you can, it's a sandbox to do whatever you want with them.
Should we take a question? Oh, there we go. Hand straight up. I'll pass you your mic. Just introduce yourself and let's. What's your name?
Hi, sorry. I know that person at the front also wants to ask one. I was just wondering, do you guys watch it back? Is it weird watching yourself back?
Always.
That's
it's
a good
always
question.
weird watching yourself back. You get used to it, but it never not becomes weird.
Yeah, so I did a little panel not long ago. I think there's about the same amount of people watching me, a full hour of just me. I don't know if you've ever tried watching yourself, if you film yourself singing, laughing, anything. It's hard.
Yeah. It's a great tool, though. Because
it is a great tool.
Yeah.
You're your biggest critic all the time, but whew.
Yeah, particularly for stuff like TV, this is a bit of kind of the acty, crafty stuff. Acting on stage, acting on television, and acting on film are different disciplines because someone's either 30 feet away from you, or they're watching your face on a 70-inch screen.
And especially when you've got all your family and your nan around, and every time you come on, they go, ah!
Yeah, that's always fun.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, it's a vital thing to do to watch yourself back to make sure to see what you look like, because you're always, also, it's saying it's weird. Watching your face reversed is always bizarre because you only ever see yourself in the mirror. You've never seen what you actually look like.
But going back to your biggest critic, you'll learn from it. You watch yourself, you just think, I could do that different, I could do that different, that was wrong, that could have done better, could have pushed that more.
I always note down a scene, I'm like, I want to know how that turned out, because if you tried something different, if you felt like, for example, like you felt, I didn't feel like I connected with that, how much can you see in that? Oh, I'm not like, it's that kind of thing, and learning constantly about what you're showing through your face, because that's my job.
And then you've already put the graft in, so watch what you've done. You look at the reward, because you'll be impressed.
Yeah, that as well, yeah. To be able to just look at the hard work you've done.
Yeah.
This gentleman at the front, the other one with the glasses, has been waiting patiently. Go on. I hope it's a good one.
That'd be good, man.
I'm hoping it's good.
I'm expecting big things.
It's the generic, but I'd like to ask how you would like to be remembered for your careers, and also what actors you would have play your life stories.
Oh, that's big.
Not generic at all. Yeah. Great question.
Well, we can that.
Aiden, do you want to start?
Hold on, can you say the first one again, quick?
How you would like to be remembered for your career.
Yeah. Oh, listen, I've never thought about that. I've kind of just gone with the flow. When I was 17, I've been in about 4 things, little quick things. How would I like to be remembered?
I'd like this to be the first chapter of a long book. Let's put it that way.
At the end of the day, I just like to be remembered.
Yeah.
If I can be remembered, that's me done. I'm happy.
Affecting people. Yeah. That's essentially our job. If you're supposed to make them laugh, if you made them laugh, if you're supposed to make them cry, make them think. That's my job. Yeah. If I can do that,
and for the time I've been at Hollyoaks, my whole job was to raise awareness on the story of abuse, and I believe I've done that. So, for the moment, I'm happy. Job done. Job done. And what was the second one?
Who are you going to play in a movie? Who's going to play you in a movie of yourself?
Superman.
What? So Henry Cavill?
Yeah.
Okay. People keep telling me I look like Macaulay Culkin. So I guess I should probably go with him. I saw a picture with him glasses on recently, and he even looks like Alfie. I would never have seen him.
They were good.
Any more questions? Oh, sorry. Yeah, of course you can. What's your name?
My name's Hannah. I've just
just graduated, and I've been a part-time student here at UCLan, and I've sort of been helping a sister of mine who's struggled with mental health, and I had to give up my job to go part-time, sort of like go into something different, like coming and learn, just keep myself active and busy, but also look after somebody with mental health, there's psychosis and schizophrenia. And it's difficult actually seeing somebody that who's your best friend, who's your sister, but you've also had to sort of like see a different character and change your approach as well to how you treat somebody as well. So, and I've lived with this person for 7 years, and it's been quite a challenge. And I've never watched Hollyoaks, but I'm going to watch it now to see where you're at.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for everything you're doing as
That's
well.
why we do this. That is honestly why we do this.
And you guys do difficult storylines, and like you said before, there's a lot of people that get in touch with you. That say, I can relate to this. How is that? Does that feel kind of like you're doing the right thing?
It's the best feeling ever.
It's difficult, granted, because my storyline's abusive. I've had many people come forward saying it's happened to them, and they've never come out before. I'm the first person they've told. So as you can imagine, that is a heck of a responsibility.
Yeah.
But then again, me doing what I've done has allowed them to come forward. So, like you said before, job's done, mate.
It's knowing that you have affected someone in the way you wanted to.
Because granted, acting in itself is brilliant. It's a laugh, and I don't know if you ever do it. Even the camp. Every single day is a laugh, but when you know you're doing it, you're having a laugh, you're working hard, you're grafting, and there's a reward at the end of it, and you're helping others. I can't think of anything better, to be honest.
No.
Any more questions?
Some more at the back.
Lou, who've we got there? What's your name?
Hazel.
Hi, Hazel. Are you a student here at UCLan?
Yeah, I'm a second year script writing masters.
Ah, there you go. Make sure you get their email address before you go. Go on, Hazel. What's your question?
So writing in television, whether it's for soap or a TV series, is obviously really hard to get into because it's hard to get experience. So what would be like a good entry-level job, would you say, with a goal to work up to being like a storyliner or a scriptwriter?
Researcher, script assistant, basically anything you can get on a soap, ideally in the editorial department. And as I say, work as hard as you can in that role. We've got writers on our team. Obviously, I was a storyliner. We've got other writers who started off as script assistants and progressed to script editor and then eventually joined the writing team. So I definitely think for me, obviously you can get a normal job and try and write on weekends and get an agent, but I think that the best way to do it is to learn on the job, and working in an editorial department of the soap teaches you so many things so that when you do eventually get that script, you know how it works, you know the production limitations, you know what the executive producer's looking for, and you just hit the ground running.
Thank you. Go on, we've got a gentleman here. What's your name?
My name is Perry. I have a story-related question. I know everyone's writing style is different, but most people tend to gravitate towards either having a fixed end point they're actively working towards, or just making it up as they go. And I was just curious which of the two, or if it's some third variation, you tend to go with.
So because it's ongoing, the soap, forever, hopefully, we don't necessarily have an end point for the show, but quite often if we're telling, we know we're telling a 1 year or 2 year story, for instance, an issue story, we quite often will have an end game ultimately that we're working towards. But month by month, we have a story conference where writers and storyliners and producers get together to come up with what the plot that month is going to be to help us get to the goal. But I would say, generally when we embark on a big story, we know ultimately what's going to happen at the end.
I've just been told, Jordan, that's the last question.
Aww.
Thank you so much. They were amazing questions, weren't they? So first of all, give yourselves a round of applause, and then also a bigger round of applause for the amazing team behind Hollyoaks. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Come back again soon, please.
Yeah, definitely.
But for now, get out of here.
Get off the sofa.
No.
They're comfy, aren't they? They're not bad.
They are. They're actually really.
The arms are comfy.
And now we're going to move from TV to radio. So we've got the brand new host of Radio 1's Breakfast Show, Greg James, here, alongside the Breakfast Show producer, the assistant producer, and my big boss at Radio 1, Haydn Jones. Please make some noise for them.
Hello, Abbie.
Hello everyone. My name is Haydn Jones. I'm the head of programs for Radio 1. And before I bring the team out, I just wanted to say a few words. So, first question, anyone here listen to Radio 1 at all? Hands up if you do. Anyone here listens to another radio station and not Radio 1?
Yes, please.
Cool. The reason why I ask that is I want to work out how much we need to explain stuff to you and how much we can just jump straight in. But for those who don't listen to Radio 1, we're a radio station that you can hear on FM, on 97 to 99, on DAB, online, or through our iPlayer radio app. And it's been going for years and years and years. And I've been there for the last year. And we're very excited because there's lots of stuff happening on the radio station. New presenters like Abbie, who you saw just now. Jordan North, who has been asking questions, joined the station this year. And we've also launched a brand new breakfast show, which is a huge deal for any radio station. And so you might see on your social feeds or on television on BBC One ads like this.
Okay, deep breath. Let's start a brand new Radio 1 breakfast show. Wish me luck.
You sure you're a morning person, Greg?
Hey Greg, it's Taylor. I'm happy for you, but I'm also worried.
Don't let Greg.
Good luck, Rumi. I mean, Greggy. Like, I'm happy for you, but I'm also worried.
Don't let Greg. If people mess up in Game of Thrones, I just kill them.
Don't let Greg.
Let Greg.
Brilliant. And you can see Greg on the side of the bus that is sat outside this building. So please welcome on stage Nicola Nittim, Will Foster and Greg James. Hello, guys.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hooray! Do I sit here?
Sit here. Sit with me. It's all good.
On the throne.
So let's jump straight in and tell the audience who you are and what you do. Start with Will.
Hi, I'm Will, and I'm one of the producers on The Breakfast Show with Greg.
And I'm Nicola, and I'm one of the assistant producers on the show.
Hello, I am Greg, and I host the Radio 1 Breakfast Show. It's nice to see you all. Have you all had a good day so far? Good. At least it's not hot in here.
One of the other things we wanted to know at the start is to work out how we can best help you with this session. So, hands up who here wants to get a job in the media somehow? Quite a lot of you.
That's good.
That's good.
That's really good.
Welcome along. How many of you want a job in radio? And how many of you want a job, any kind of job in life that doesn't matter if it's media or not? Okay, good.
Hands up who wants to flog shit on Instagram? Yeah.
Influencers.
Some influencers already, I can feel it.
Okay, so we've got quite a media crowd, which is great. So let's start with that ad. So how did that ad come about? Why that ad, Greg?
We wanted something to sum up the spirit of the show, and we wanted it to feel like it wasn't going to take itself too seriously, and someone at the BBC who's in charge of the marketing stuff put forward a few options for everything, and the one that was essentially with the spirit of don't fuck it up, we thought was a really good thing because it's quite a big job and people understand that it's a big job to do. So obviously we can't say those words on the advertising campaign, so we changed it to don't blow it, Greg. So we thought that was quite a bold statement to do a slightly tongue-in-cheek advert for the whole thing, playing on the fact that I was panicking about the whole job. When we said yes to it about 2 months ago, I wasn't panicking, but then when it went on TV, I was actually panicking, and it was horrible to watch. So it sort of worked in a weird way.
Did.
So yeah, don't blow it, Greg. That's why we did it.
And I've seen a lot of shows launch, and what was nice about this launch was that the whole team was involved. So production teams, Will, you a producer, you were involved. So what kind of stuff did you work on before the first show started?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we just kind of wanted to be honest, I think, with what we were hoping to achieve in the mornings. And I'm not sure what you guys think when you're sort of looking on your phone or on the internet, whatever it might be. Just a lot of stuff just looks the same, and it's maybe just pin-ups of big celebrities, and it's just the same offering over and over and over again. And to be honest, we're not trying to do anything hugely different. We're just trying to reflect how your mornings are and how our mornings are. And
really that boils down to we all get up at the same time, look at our phones, see what's funny, see what makes us smile, see what music we like. And we thought, what are the best ways that we can get all of those ingredients into 3.5 hours every day on the radio? And I think there's a danger you can overthink these things. And we're not doing anything hugely revolutionary, but we're trying to make something which is human and a nice companion to have in the morning when, let's be honest, the world's pretty shitty, there'll be all sorts of crap going on, and if you've just got a little companion that doesn't judge you and makes you feel sort of maybe, hopefully, even slightly happy or just takes your mind off something, then that's a success.
And you make it sound so simple, but 6 million people listen to this every morning. Does that freak you out?
Yes, the don't blow it thing is definitely running around my head. But it was, I think, the thing I love most about doing radio is that when I was, well, I still am a listener, but when I was a kid growing up listening to the radio, I liked the idea of it being for me and the presenter talking to me and trying to sort of boil down the world and be like, these are the 5 funny things you need to know today. Here are the 5 brilliant new songs that I want you to listen to today. And it feel radio at its best makes you feel like you're in an amazing club with the listeners and all the other listeners and people calling in and all the rest of it. You feel like you're part of a gang. That gang is quite big, but actually the best shows, even though they might be enormous in terms of how many people listen to them, they should feel quite intimate and like it's just for you, and it should feel relatable and like it's sort of achievable in a way. If you hear someone on the radio who's a caller who's got a really funny story, you're like, oh, I've got a funny story, I want to pile in, I want to tell them my story and that kind of thing. So it's really important for us that it's quite a joyful, silly place to come in the morning and listen and get, even if it's for 20 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you listen to, that there should be something that makes you laugh or that you remember for the rest of your day.
And I always think if we're having fun in the studio, if we're laughing in the studio, then you hope that other people listening are kind of joining in with us.
It's
having
definitely
fun.
infectious. That is definitely true.
Hope so.
Well, this is part of the Radio 1 Academy, so let's talk a little bit about careers. We'll get to the famous careers first, but actually, what you tend to notice when you come to TV or media or radio is that the jobs that might attract you to that media, like for me, I wanted to be a CBBC presenter. I mean, I still do. I'm just too old now. That's what attracted me to the job. But actually, when you get close to the job, you start to see how many people there are working behind the scenes, making it all work. So on The Breakfast Show, Greg's the figurehead and he's on the posters, but will you produce it? What does that mean?
So quite often I think if I said that, if you imagine a film director, I think a lot of people would loosely be able to say the sort of things they think that person might do. So if you imagine like Steven Spielberg or something like that, you imagine him in his director's chair and he says like, oh, I want that thing there and I want that thing to look like that, and sort of talks about the sort of full 2 hours that a film might be. And you don't have directors really in radio, but you do have producers. And I guess a producer, it's getting all of the different component parts and just making sure it works and it comes together as hopefully a coherent entity. And that can be anything from checking the sort of music that you're playing each day, making sure that there aren't any swear words in it because it's in the morning and you don't want to offend people who've got lots of young listeners, lots of families listening. It might be choosing what guests you want to have on the show. It's just physically getting the radio on so you guys can hear it in the morning wherever you are. So there's a technical aspect to it as well. So it's all the different little bits. But to be honest, I think all of us in that studio space actually collectively work on that same goal. And what I've really enjoyed about it is it's so collaborative, and that sort of feeling of all of us picking each other up and contributing to that this one show is brilliant. But for me, I mean, you can probably even see it here. I love the idea of radio and everything that Greg was talking about, but I'm naturally a very shy person. I don't really like talking in front of huge rooms of people.
So this is hell for you right now.
But what I do love is everything that radio represents and everything that The Breakfast Show represents. And what's amazing about being a producer is that you can be completely part of that and be involved with creating these amazing, hopefully really entertaining moments. But you're tucked away in a way where you don't have to feel that pressure of maybe being completely in the limelight. And so that really appealed to me because I just crumble under the pressure of doing what Greg does each morning, but I really enjoy every aspect of the process.
And then Nicola, you're assistant producer. What does that mean?
Yeah, so assistant producer is kind of, I don't know, like jack of all trades, really. It's quite a supportive role. So it's, you know, kind of finding good listeners who could come on and chat to Greg, looking for creative ideas, checking music, like Will was saying. But with our team, it's a bit different. Everyone kind of jumps in, but I think what I kind of bring to what I do as an assistant producer is like Will was saying, Greg is the face and he's really good at talking on the radio. I feel like I'm quite organised and quite like I can pick out like a good voice and someone who would sound really good on the radio. So we do like a lot of stuff with listeners and stuff, and I will call back, God knows, like sometimes like 10 people, and I'm only looking for one person, but I'm just waiting to find that one person who can tell a story really well, is really energetic, is really fun, who I think would have good chemistry with Greg. But yeah.
And I guess actually the process of what we do, and we shouldn't really sort of try and elevate it to anything too grand. It's exactly what you might do if you go to the pub or you just meet up with your mates in the park or whatever it might be. And you all sit down and you go like, oh, did you see that thing on your phone there? Or did you see that thing on telly last night? Or did you hear that new song that came out? Ultimately, we just do that. But then we put it on the radio so as many people can hear it as possible.
You say that, but that's because... So the thing about the Radio 1 Breakfast Show is, and after I got over the CBBC presenter want and realised that wasn't going to happen, I knew that I wanted to be in radio, and the Radio 1 Breakfast Show was seen as the biggie. So what you will find is these guys are the best at their jobs. This show is the biggest you get, and actually the teams are the biggest for this show than for any other show. If you were to join Pulse Radio in this university, the chances are you will be a presenter on your own in that studio, and maybe if you're lucky you might have a producer work with you. But looking at your team again, we might as well talk through who else is not here so that everyone knows what the entry level can be into radio, but not every radio station would obviously have that for each show. So we've also got a team assistant who does the logistical stuff.
Yeah, so our team assistant Sophie, she's back in London. She kind of does everything from like, if we picked a caller, she'll get the caller up and just, you know, give them all the facts, please don't swear, all that kind of stuff. But then also she's really involved in like coming up with creative ideas because it is really like a team effort. And then there's 2 assistant producers, so me and Daisy, and then 2 producers, Will and Chris. We also have Liam, who does like all the station sounds, so like all the kind of jingles and stuff that you hear. He does all like specific stuff just for the breakfast show.
So much effort goes into how that sounds.
Yeah.
And it really sets different radio stations apart depending on how much energy you put into that. So to have Liam dedicated to that really does sound great, doesn't it?
Yeah, the interesting thing about this new show is that I deliberately wanted it to not be a gang of people that you listened to, because there's a lot of that all over the place. Basically, every other breakfast show in the whole country is most of them are a whole gang of people that kind of bounce off each other and all the rest of it. But you have to, if it's just me and the listeners and, you know, just a load of stuff, you need more people behind the scenes to help generate that stuff and find those callers and find those bits. Because I was really keen, well, still I'm really keen to make sure the show is me with the listeners, not just sort of performing to everybody. And that's sometimes, there's some amazing examples of shows that work brilliantly as, you know, it's called a zoo format. So you've got like, you know, 3 or 4 people in there chipping in. But we've replaced that with people sort of behind the scenes to help generate all that content as well. So it's definitely a harder approach, but I think when you nail it, it makes the listener feel more included in the actual show. So that's kind of our game. Is that right? The end game.
And then the person in your team with the best job in the world is Alex Manzi. And Alex looks after all the social media for the show. What kind of stuff does he work on?
Yes, I guess I'm not sure what you have in your heads when you imagine radio, but we're as much a visual offering as an audio offering in terms of how our studios are set up. So we have cameras absolutely everywhere. If you've ever looked at our Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, there are tons and tons of videos on there. And it's up to someone to make sure those videos look brilliant and they're things that you want to engage with and that they're short and that they're funny and that you're going to get some sort of value out of them. And Alex, who works with us at the moment, he'll trawl through loads of different footage and make sure that he gets it onto those various platforms. He has a big say in terms of what those videos will end up looking like. So you have a huge amount of control actually in terms of translating those ideas that you might listen to and how they might end up being visually. And they're broadcast to so many people. Our Twitter account, 3 million people, I think, is that right? So if you're thinking of other jobs that could be involved with the sort of area that we work in, you could be making videos that 3 million people watch every day. And that's that's so many more people than will watch a lot of your favourite shows on television.
Yeah. The other thing is that we wanted to, I mean, in 2018, you have to make sure it's not just a radio show and that it lives outside of the radio show, and that's really important because it not only, hopefully will be entertaining to people, but also will encourage people to come back to the radio show if they happen to be in the car at 8:10 in the morning. They'll be like, oh, I saw that funny video from that guy, so it works in sort of a marketing tool as well. So it's so important for a radio station to be visible on an Instagram timeline or just on Twitter. It needs to have some sort of presence there, otherwise it just won't survive. You have to kind of feed both sides of it, as well as it being a good radio show and a good listen when you're listening live. It's tricky, but you can do it.
So Greg, let's get to the important question then, that I'm sure a lot of people want to know.
How much you paid?
How much you paid? No, if they want to do your job or get into radio presenting, what should they do? What did you do?
Well, my advice now would be, I mean, I'll tell you briefly about what I did in a second, but my advice would be to completely use the world that is around you now and look at what is successful at the moment, and podcasts are bigger than they ever have been, really. The podcast started massive, and then they tailed off a little bit, but they just exploded again about 3 or 4 years ago with things like Serial and This American Life and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, like my dad wrote a porno that Alice Levine, who does a show on Radio 1, was part of. So podcasts are enormous, and they're quite easy to... they're not easy to do. Good ones are hard to do, but they're easy to get up and running because you just need a couple of microphones, and all you really need are just a few radio ideas. So if you have a great idea for an interview format, for example, maybe it could just be something like, I'm going to interview musicians on the bus, or whatever it might be. You can find your little niche quite easily, I think, and then you can get a following that way. So that would be something that I would definitely do if I was trying to get into radio now, because it's just good practice and it's good sort of interview technique and coming up with ideas and creating content and all that. But student radio was the thing that really set it all off for me, and I've always loved listening to the radio, and I have done since I was a kid. And then I started doing hospital radio, which was at my where I grew up. There was a hospital that had a really shitty old hospital radio station that I went along to and literally knocked on the door, got my mum to drive me up there and was like, I want to go and see what they do in there. And I was a very uncool kid. I mean, that won't surprise you. And sort of went in there and helped out and watched what they did, and they taught me a few things about the basics of radio. And I just loved it. And I loved the idea of just being on and communicating to people that you weren't in the same room as. I thought that was quite cool. And then I went to university. I went to the University of East Anglia, and they had an amazing student radio station. I didn't really know much about it, but during my freshers' fair, someone came up to me and said, do you want to join the radio station? And not only was it an amazing social thing to do, because we put on club nights and comedy nights and all the rest of it, and I made some of my really good mates there, I just completely fell in love with doing radio shows, and I produced shows and did some sports sort of bulletins and became the station manager for a little bit. And you get to work out what you do and what you don't like and what you're good at, and I realised that presenting was the thing that I wanted to do and that gave me most joy. So that was kind of it. And then from student radio, Radio 1 spotted me through that, and then they gave me a tryout show to do, and that was pretty much the year after I graduated, and it was very lucky that they wanted someone at that time. But there are those opportunities that do come up, but you've just got to just sort of go for it in a way. And also listen to as much as possible and work at stations that you wouldn't normally work at, and listen to stuff and read things you wouldn't normally read. And I think you have to have a really good sort of outlook on the world, I think. So I did some work for a community radio station that I mean, I was interested in it, but it was a charity thing and all the rest of it, so I got involved with that, and I went and worked at BBC Norfolk and answered the phones for a little bit. So being around the industry, whatever industry you want to get into, is really important, I think, and it's not necessarily about, oh, I haven't got the exact job I want right now. It's more about enjoying those jobs that you're doing and just making the most of them, and you don't really know where they're going to get to, but that's quite exciting at the same time.
So, do you think the hospital radio and the community radio station, the work that you did was important?
Incredibly important, yeah, because I was just around it. I was around a radio station. I was learning about it the whole time and making mistakes and doing terrible shows and doing terrible ideas and working out which bits were good and then just getting used to being on the radio, essentially. So, yeah, those things are really, really important. So, work experience is a great thing to go for, and internships and those sorts of things, even if it's not the exact thing you want. Being around the industry and watching people who do it is vital, really, because if you don't know everything about the industry you want to get into, then there'll be somebody else who knows more and is sort of a bit more dedicated to it, and they'll get it. I think that's kind of it. You need to be nerdy about the thing you're passionate about.
Thank you, Greg. And Will and Nicola, what about if you don't want to be on mic or on screen? What advice would you give about getting into the industry?
Okay. So I started student radio as well, but didn't really want to be a presenter. But I think what got me into radio was that I really, really loved music. Like, when I was at school, I went to gigs all the time, and so then naturally started listening to radio and like Zane Lowe and all that kind of thing. And I think it's that passion that kind of saw me through my whole kind of radio career. But what I did was I just, not in a bad way, but just like harassed people until they would meet me and like research anything they did, even if it wasn't something that I wanted to do. So I always wanted to work at Radio 1, but when I finished uni, I was doing like working at a local radio station, and one of the guys there used to know someone who worked at Radio 2. So I just went and met up with them for a coffee and like listened to Radio 2 for like a week because I didn't know anything about it. But just like, if you do get those opportunities to meet people, like research into what they do, because people love to hear, especially like from young people, that, you know, you're interested in what they do and you want to learn from them. But yeah, so I worked at a local radio station, and then I applied to everything. And it wasn't just at the BBC, but just anything to do with radio. And I managed to get into a trainee scheme at the BBC. So I worked at Radio 2, I worked at Watchdog, where else did I work? I worked at Six Music. But in the back of my mind, it was always like Radio 1. So even working at Radio 2, there were some people who used to work at Radio 1, and I was like messaging them, oh, do you know anyone I can speak to at Radio 1? And also just like be yourself and be nice and show interest and show passion. And yeah, I think that's really important.
I think that persistence thing is really important, and I potentially took it too far, but I had this book, or piece of paper, really, and I'd...
and Will got arrested.
And it had names of every single person I met or had encountered who worked loosely in the world of radio. And I'd message...
If you know Will, this is not a surprise to you, by the way. This is how he works.
And I'd make sure... I didn't want to pester people, but I'd make sure I was messaging them once a month. And I just write a little note under each thing saying, the last time I spoke to them, we talked about this, and I asked them about this. And then a month later, I'll go, oh, I just wanted to follow up on this, just seeing if there's anything that's changed. And actually, if you do that with 2 people, you probably won't get anywhere. But if you do that with 25 people, it's amazing how someone might be ill or new opportunities come up. People will always want to employ someone or give someone work experience or give someone a break that they already have a familiarity with. And instantly, they just leapt upon it and said, oh, yeah, do you want to pop in and do this for half a day? And suddenly that half a day becomes sort of 2 days a week, and then before you know it, you're in a workplace that might be of interest to you. The other thing is that before I worked at Radio 1, I used to work for a fireworks company, weirdly, which you would have thought is completely unrelated to this world. But fireworks quite often have soundtracks and they put music to them. I'm not sure if you ever see like with the New Year, and they have like all the fireworks on the London Eye, and there's like music that goes with it. And one of the people in the company said, we could do with someone to mix the music for our displays. And I instantly said, I love music, I do lots of stuff with music, can I do it? And I started making the soundtracks for fireworks displays. And then interestingly, that crosses over to the BBC broadcast those fireworks sometimes. You'll encounter people who work in these creative industries. So don't always think that you have to go for a direct route into what you want to do. Because it's amazing what can pop up along the way.
So presumably you're... Sorry.
No, I didn't. That's amazing. I didn't know that. But that is such a good point from Will, is that I meant to say when I was last boring you. But I think what's really great is if you're enjoying the thing you're doing at that time and you're not too fixated on getting to a place. I always would love, the idea of working for Radio 1 was obviously amazing, and I always wanted to do the breakfast show, but it wasn't the thing that I wasn't going to die if I didn't get to Radio 1. I was just really enjoying doing student radio. I loved doing those little bits. I loved answering the phones on a shitty station. It was kind of fun. I think that a lot is put on this place that you can get to, but there is no place, really, because there's always somewhere else to get to. And someone gave me some really good advice a few years ago, which was just don't keep looking too far ahead. Really focus on enjoying what you're doing at that moment. So maybe it's the fireworks place and you're doing the music for that. Because if you're relaxed in a thing and if you're enjoying it, then you tend to be a bit more approachable and you're a bit more open-minded and you might chat to somebody else, and it sort of happens a bit more organically. If you're too fixated and too desperate, for the want of a better word, then things don't tend to happen. It's a bit like love. If you're looking for somebody, it very rarely happens. It happens when you're not really looking for it. So getting into radio is very much like having a girlfriend. So there we go.
And I want to pick up on, your list of names and how contacts and conversations you had. That could apply, presumably, for any career.
Yeah, and I think that it's easy to think that, I don't stand a chance of getting that thing, or I don't stand a chance of getting this job or that job. I'm often surprised by the shortage of people who are persistent, and also a shortage of talent. I think if you put your mind to something and I'm not saying you're sort of absolutely brilliant at it, but you sort of start understanding the thing you might be putting your mind to. It's amazing how much that stands out, because so many people just get bored with an idea, or sort of, I'm not sure, or move on to something else, or get a bit distracted. And after sort of 6 months of pursuing, I don't know, a certain job or something like that, a lot of people fall by the wayside. It's amazing. We do lots of work experience programs, and you can do days shadowing at the BBC and come into Radio 1 for a day. If you want to do that kind of thing, by the way, you can find it out on the Radio 1 website, and there's a careers website that's really good for opportunities like that. It's amazing how accessible it is, actually. I think sometimes you can look at it and think, I'll never get to go into that building or do that thing there. But to get a day at one of those radio stations, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's amazing that people will apply once, not get it, and go, I'm never going to get there.
The BBC is very fair that it's not about who you know anymore. So if you submit your request to be part of a radio station, One Extra, Asian Network, Radio 1, whoever, it's like a list. So it will become your time if you're willing to wait. So you will get in the building if you are that passionate.
Yeah.
Jordan North, who is one of our Radio 1 presenters, as you've already met, is there on the side.
This bike's...
I asked them to not give you any more. There we go.
Hey, in front of my bosses. Cheers, guys.
And so we don't want to just talk at you for the whole hour. So if there's any questions, please do put your hand up. Jordan North is here, who can bring a mic to you to ask. While you're thinking of your question, I have got a few here, which I'm happy to go to.
They've been quite good, actually, to be fair. So have we got any more? I know you're all ready for your dinner or your lunch if you're down south. So, which is free, by the way. It's on us. So we've got some questions already. Do you want to go straight to them?
Go for it.
Free lunch. Yep. Yep. We've got to pay though. What's your name?
Cara.
And what's your question for us?
My question is, I've been interested in radio for a few years, and I've spoken to quite a few presenters, and they've always told me to learn transferable skills. even if I'm not doing radio or anything media related, what are the most transferable life skills you can apply to radio?
Great question. Excellent question, and there are tons of answers to that.
Transferable life skills. Well, I think, as we said earlier about it being, has to be a visual offering for a radio show. So I think doing videos is definitely a skill that you need to get good at and practice, and maybe do some little bits, even if it's just filming your interviews, making sure that they exist in video form, because that's how people share that kind of stuff. But in terms of transferable life skills, I mean,
I got one.
Brainstorming.
Script writing. Being collaborative, I think, is a really important one. I think bouncing ideas off people. An idea is always better if you've got 2 or 3 brains on it. You very rarely can just come up with the idea and it is done and it's the best it can be and you can put it on the radio. You could just do that, but it's better to collaborate with some people, whether it's a regular writer or some producer or just a mate if it's student radio. I had a mate with me on my show just working out what was funny and what was not funny. So that's a really good one. But I think in general, being aware of the world is really important if you're a radio presenter. You have to know not only what your target audience are interested in and talking about, but also what else is happening. What are your rival radio stations doing? I think you should have a really good view on the news. You should read every newspaper, even the ones that you hate. It's good to scan through all those newspapers that you're not interested in. You should read The Sun, you should read The Mail, you should read The Guardian, you should read The Times. You should know what all those viewpoints are. And I think you should watch as much as possible and listen to stuff that you don't normally listen to. I think that can only make your brain bigger by listening to stuff that you wouldn't normally go to. And then you kind of go, oh, that's what Radio 4 does, great. And there might be something on there that you hear that you can go, oh, I could do a thing about that. That's interesting. So it's about being really open-minded to the world and connected to it and knowing what the issues of the world are. And then you can therefore communicate that to the listeners and feel part of the world and not like an island, I think.
I used to work in an insurance company for a year before I started actively pursuing radio. And one of the main things that I think I've kind of taken from that job is talking to people. And talking to people when they're annoyed, trying to persuade people to kind of do something that you want them to do, just having a chat with people. And I just find that so important when you're working in radio, because you're talking to listeners, you're talking to companies, when we did the Pass the Pasty thing, I was talking to pasty shops, trying to get them involved in get involved in the project, talking to other team members, talking to presenters. It's being able to talk to people from all different walks of life. That's one of the main skills I kind of picked up from jobs I had.
There's one more actually you just reminded me about. You've got to be amazing at listening. When you're doing an interview, listen more than talk. It's the main thing. You've just got to listen to people around you and listen to your guest and listen to your caller. There's nothing worse than a caller saying something really funny that the presenter misses because they're too busy trying to think of the funny thing themselves. So the key to being a really great interviewer is to listen as much as possible. And actually that comes to when you're in a job interview, and that doesn't have to be for radio or media or anything like that, whatever that job might be. I think a really easy mistake to make is an interviewer will ask you a question and you sort of try to guess or assume, or you've got nervous and you panicked and you've made the wrong assumption about what that question was, and you answer the question incorrectly. And so often I think that can be the case for a reason why you don't end up getting a job if you have a job interview, is that you panic and you made an assumption about what that question might be. And so if you're in a job interview and someone asks you a question, something I've always done is I write down the question that the person asked me before I answer it. And that way it just gives you a moment to see, oh, okay, what was it they asked me there? Okay, right, I think I've got it. Because otherwise you do like a sort of knee-jerk reaction and you might say the wrong thing.
And I would add to all of that as someone who hires presenters and has been an editor, so hiring new production staff, anyone who's running any company is worried about something, about a scene they're missing out on, a genre that they might not be aware of, what young people want from radio. So actually, all those transferable life skills that you're describing, all the learning, the reading, the listening, the experience, come in with the attitude that you might be their answer to something. So if you can say, I'm across this musical genre. It might be helpful if you need me to be able to suggest shows, or I could present that music for you, or I could give you a guide too, or I know that this Australian radio station is doing this kind of stuff. Can I pitch you some things? The person, whether they use the language or not, they want to know whether they're missing out on something. So all that research would be very useful. You may be the answer to their problem.
That's really true. And also being confident and saying what you could do for that company is quite a bold thing if you want to be a presenter. I mean, I don't think I've ever said this, but I told Alid that I wanted to do the breakfast show, and then you work on that together, because otherwise he would not have known that I wanted to do that. Yeah. So you have to sort of be quietly confident with those sorts of things, and you shouldn't be ashamed of your ambition if you are ambitious. I mean, don't be a dick about it, but
do not do that.
But you can quietly say, I really want to give that a go, and here's what I would do as well. So I think that's a good life skill as well. Don't be ashamed. You only get one go at life, don't you? Might as well have a laugh.
Indeed. And as much as you think you're going into a board to find out if they would employ you because they like you or not, what you're actually doing is you're selling yourself. So they are there thinking whether what they will get from you. So to sell yourself in that way as well, just like Greg just did, and just say, I would love to do this. Here's what I can do for you. That was a long answer, wasn't it? We'll be quicker, probably.
No,
sorry.
good.
The person who asked the question has died of old age.
Yeah, sorry.
This lady's got a question here. What's your name?
My name's Chelsea.
Are you a student at UCLan, Chelsea?
Yes, I am.
Ah, what year are you in?
I'm going into my second year.
And what are you studying?
Journalism.
Right. So what's your question for the Radio 1 guys, Chelsea?
Okay, so I do like journalism, and obviously I study it, but from my point of view, I am a student. I don't have a lot of time. And I'm thinking from the audience perspective, how are you guys as a team going to help people like me who do have an interest in your show, but don't have the time to be involved in it? What are you going to do?
When you say involved,
those are
do you
things
mean
I'm
listen? Is that what you mean, sorry?
Listen, be a part of it. How are you going to reach those audiences?
Great question. The question, in fact.
Well, there are a lot of things that we do on the show which... there's definitely a choice whether to add radio to your daily routine, like if you wanted to. Do you know? So whatever the thing... that's partly the reason we've come up with the show we've come up with, is because we want it to feel like you don't have to endlessly scroll through your phone to find some stuff or some fun things during the morning or whatever it might be, that you should just switch the radio on for 10 minutes and you get a sort of boiled down version of the world as it stands in that moment, and you can go off on your day and do whatever, and obviously play some great songs at the same time. So there's that. We also put the highlights of the show on a podcast daily, which you can listen to on demand. The show is sort of available whenever you want to listen to it online. We also do the videos which live separately to the show, so obviously we understand that everyone's busy, like everyone, as you said, we've all got shit to do. The show is on from 6:30 till 10. We understand that people won't necessarily listen to the whole thing and maybe don't want to do anything before 10 o'clock in the morning. So the show is supposed to live later on in the day through the podcast, through a video which might live on Facebook or Instagram that you might catch. So there's those are some of the things that we do. And we also go out and about and do stuff throughout the day, throughout the rest of the station. We've just done a few sort of bigger events throughout the rest of the day, the kind of event radio things that you can get involved with, not by just listening, but they might just be on Twitter. We did a thing called Hide and Seek, where I went and hid with Grimmy, and you could have listened to that and it would have been enjoyable, hopefully, on the radio, but it also just lived as a Twitter thing, in a way, because people were just kind of on the way to a lecture or the shop or whatever, they were like, where the fuck are they? I think they're in Bradford. No. And it's sort of... So you have to make sure that the offering is available in different areas. So that's some of the ways that we hope to reach as many people as possible.
When we first started kind of thinking about the show, I remember saying that I want us to use social media how Love Island do it. I loved Love Island, but I could go for a whole week and not watch an episode, but I knew exactly what was happening because it was all over Twitter. And they just had little videos, catch-up videos, you know what's happening, you didn't have to watch the show. Whereas, and I feel like we are doing that with our kind of social media on Twitter and Instagram. We clip up some of the best bits, some of the funniest things that we do on the show, we put up on Twitter, you can watch, it's like, 50 seconds long, and you feel like that you've seen one of the funniest things that we did on the show.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I think a lot of radio stations and TV companies or whatever are obsessed with making all the viewers and all the listeners as into the product as the people who make it are. And I'm not really. If you want to be, that's great. And I'd love you to be as nerdy about radio as I am. But the reality of that is not the reality. But if we can make you add radio to your routine and then but also obviously get something from it, and we make it appealing so that you do that, then even if you've got 1% of the passion that we have for what we make, then that's kind of brilliant. You could, if you are Love Island, they understand that millions of people watch it, but they also know that millions of people just watch one clip of idiots, and then that's kind of like they've touched the brand of Love Island, if you know what I mean. So there's different levels of fandom, I suppose, with any product, and I think that's what we appreciate when we do our radio show. That you're not sat there going, "What's he going to do next?" But some people are, and that's really cool.
And from a management point of view, it's not our job to make you want it. It's our job to know what you want and actually provide as many of our audience what they would want from us. And so hopefully it'll work that way around rather than our job to recruit people to it, despite doing stuff like this.
We've only got like 5 minutes, so we'll take 2 quick questions and we'll get this gentleman here. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Brooke.
Brooke, what's your question?
So, for a student wanting to potentially kickstart their own radio station in the future, what advice could you offer?
For starting your own radio station?
Don't hire presenters. That would be my from management. No, joking.
I mean, I think it can be it can be incredibly simple, weirdly, to start. I think now there are so many radio stations out there, and whether that's on a professional level, in hospitals and community stations, you could look at that in one way and say, oh, that's terrifying because there are lots of competitors out there, there's a lot of noise out there, will people actually listen to what I'm doing? But the other way of looking at it is that the technology's never been more available to get yourself heard. And I guess it depends how you define a radio station. From everything that Greg's been saying and Nicola's been saying and Alad's been saying, a radio station isn't this massive antenna in a field somewhere broadcasting to sort of radios magically. It's being on a Twitter timeline, it's being on YouTube, it's being in a podcast, it's being everywhere. And so actually using existing tools that are free to use, you can have an identity of what is largely speaking a radio station, but maybe not in the sense of you've got an office in like a city centre. You could run it from a bedroom, you could run it from a mate's house, you could run it from wherever, really.
I would say find your niche as well. Work out which audience you want, actually, and broadcast really well to them. Because being what Radio 1 does, which is broad radio to a broad group of people, is actually really hard. And commercial have started getting quite narrow linear stations who basically say, this is all about 90s, this is all about dance, this is all about... And actually, if you look at audio as a collection of offerings, then there's room for everyone to live. And I think there's micro-niche is probably the next level that is available to grab. So if you have a real expertise in something, create a stream of audio that is based on just that, and then market it.
One of the best ideas recently was that Radio Dead thing, where they just play dead artists. It's good, isn't it? Like, just find your little thing. I think that's quite good. I don't listen to it very much. It's not thoroughly depressing. But it reminds you of your own mortality.
We've got one more question. What's your name? Kim. Kim, sorry, Kim. Where are you from?
I'm from Glasgow.
Right, that's probably my fault for not understanding your
It's
accent.
my
What's your question?
My question is, so I'm really interested in presenting, and I always have been like entertaining and stuff, but I think Scottish presenters are really underrepresented in the radio industry. So I was sort of wondering what your advice would be to try and get into the industry with a Scottish voice.
If you are correct that the Scottish voices are underrepresented, then use it to your advantage. Because, and I suspect you are correct, everyone would love to have a proper diverse range of voices from the entire United Kingdom. So you know how I was saying, when you go into jobs and you're letting them know what you can do for them, that is going to be one of the things that you can do, which is to improve the range of diverse voices you're going to get on their radio station. So that would be my first point.
Also, sometimes you feel like, especially something like the BBC, which is so massive and like so mainstream, that you can already put yourself on the back foot and be like, oh, I'm not going to be accepted there. They don't want people like me. I can like say that personally. But then also, like Alid was saying, use it to your advantage and be like, I come from a completely different walk of life to whoever. And so then I'm going to bring something new that these other people can't. Like, use everything about yourself as a positive and like use that to kind of make your way through whatever industry you want to work on.
On that point, here's an insight. The Scottish media landscape, it seems to be, there's such a strong identity to what being Scottish is, that it's hard for a United Kingdom station to have a high representation in Scotland. So actually, you could bring that to a bigger audience and say, I am identified as Scottish, and I could bring that to your radio station. So use it to your advantage, exactly as Nicola says.
Great questions. Thanks, guys. I know you're all ready for your lunch. Before you go for your free lunch, can you give a big round of applause to Alid, Greg, Nicola, and Will from Radio 1. Thank you.